It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay is here. Andy Anaco's here. Jason Snell couldn't be here. Called away to a secret meeting in Cupertino, but fortunately, Micah Sargent is here. You know what we're going to talk about? Yesterday's WWDC in all its glory, the pros, the cons, the pluses, the minuses. Apple AI coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 925, recorded Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. Sherlocking AI. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the big show after the show. Yesterday, we saw Apple's plans for AI, and there's nothing artificial about it. Joining us to talk about it, Jason Snell has unaccountably been disappeared. He's appearing somewhere in Cupertino, California. But Andy Anaco is here from his prison cell, it looks like. That's nice.
No, it's my protective bunker. They Apple Intelligence already got to Jason, and I'm afraid they're going to come after me next. So don't try to IP trace me because it'll very, very, very much impact my future. I want to speak freely and proudly about because artificial intelligence and I had a détente. We don't have any sort of a truce between Apple Intelligence, whatever the hell that is. So I'm not taking any chances until
I'm reading a sci-fi book in which there are two artificial intelligences at war with one another,
battling one,
which is interesting. That is
adversarial AI networks.
Yeah, adversarial intelligence.
Adversary AI. I like it.
Adversary AI.
Only it's more like Mean Girls in high school than actually building better models.
The fellow over to my left here is Mr. Micah Sargent.
Hello.
From iOS Today, where he was recently laboring in the mines of iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard and has come back to tell us everything there's to know about iOS 18. Also here from officehours.global, where they sat and watched the show yesterday, Mr. Alex Lindsay. Hello, Alex.
Hello. It's good to be here.
So what was the feeling of the Office Hours crew?
Well, I think a lot of people enjoyed it. I think that there's definitely, I think overall, there was a little bit of they caught up to some degree, with things that were already out there. But also, I think that Apple's, their approach to it, I think is definitely unique and very uniquely Apple, in the sense that they basically created what we kind of thought of as three layers. They have you're going to do some things on your device, some things on the cloud, some things into the private cloud, and then for all the other things, you still have access to right now, ChatGPT and eventually Gemini and other things. But I do think that number one is that I think that Apple always looks at what will 90% of the population, 90% of their users do 90% of the time. And I think if you look at what is being produced by the device and the private cloud, it's probably between 70 and 90% of what the average person wants to do with their phone or with their device. And then they still have this kind of release valve. And they have the freedom to keep on expanding, expanding what people are doing on their devices and on their private cloud while still never having it not be able to scale up. I think that the other thing is they're giving most of these tools or almost all these tools back to the developers. And so developers are going to be able to add this, I think before they had to kind of figure out what it was going to do and how much it was going to cost and all those other things. And a lot of those things now are getting tied in to the, being made available to the developers to add to it. So I think we definitely saw a very, fairly unique way of approaching the problem that is something that only Apple can do. Doesn't necessarily make it better or worse, just makes it an Apple version of AI. And so I think that's, but I think a lot of folks are pretty excited about it.
Andy, what'd you think?
I thought it was really, really great. It's great that we're talking about this a day later as opposed to the day of, because this is true of pretty much all Apple keynotes, but I think especially this one. After a day when your first enthusiasm wears off, that's when you start looking at exactly what was shown off and you realize that, okay, they didn't show off a lot that was really new or really fresh. A lot of the most interesting stuff, like the intelligence in Siri, they were really vague about exactly how this is going to work and when it's going to be released. So this was all a lot of hypothetical stuff. But when you compare it to Google I/O's AI keynote last month, it's pretty much the same thing. Actually, almost lasted exactly the same amount of time. I was surprised it lasted nearly 2 hours. But whereas Google was extremely hyped about talking about the basic technology and talking about the core research and talking about the layers that they were putting into this, Apple really wanted just to focus on, here are some actual things that, here are some demos of actual things our intelligence are going to do built into our actual products right now. And it doesn't really matter that they can't really, maybe it's not quite so ambitious as far as what they can announce right now. It gives people a sense of comfort that, yeah, Apple does have a strategy. Yeah, looks like they're not going to make the same mistakes that OpenAI and Google made, which are myriad and legendary. And it looks like they bought enough time to actually make these things happen. So I'm really, really very pleased with it.
And one of the things is that the keynote was very cursory, I definitely encourage people to look at the State of the Union was much deeper into what Apple was doing.
Yeah, me too.
So that it was a much deeper deep dive. It's not like, oh, we just kind of added. I think that there was this little bit of like the kind of uninformed press was saying, well, they've incorporated ChatGPT, and it was kind of
right, exactly.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a little deeper than that. They're doing an enormous amount of work on the device, an enormous amount of work in the private cloud. And then they're basically a release valve is, oh yeah, and you can have all these other things on the periphery if you want to be able to add them. And by the way, if you're a developer, you don't have to do anything other than open it up. If you're already using Apple's tools, it's very easy to add.
Yeah, I mean, the State of the Union had a lot of it really did bring home the idea that no, they didn't just say, okay, well, we entered into a desperation agreement with OpenAI to get basic text summaries and basic rewrites somewhere on our device. No, when you look at things like the private cloud compute, which I'm sure we'll talk about in more depth later on, that's when they're talking about how not only actually surprised me that it's going to be running on Apple's own silicon in the cloud, but also that it was only about 10 or 15 minutes of the State of the Union, but they're mentioning that, well, basically we started with like iOS/X for the operating system that these servers are running, and we removed everything that we don't need, and not just to make it faster, more performative, but saying we even removed from the operating system persistent storage because this is supposed to not actually keep any people's data. So we've removed everything that could actually make that happen. So it's great because if in the next year, some naysayers are saying, "Oh well, gosh, look at ChatGPT 12. Hey, look at Gemini 81. Look at what it can do." Apple really has a long-term plan. They're making a statement. They have a point of view about how they want to go about this, and so long as they stay focused on delivering actual appreciative tools that are better or as good as what we can actually see through a third-party app on Gemini or OpenAI, they got time.
Micah, you're nodding.
Yeah, with the last part there, I think simply the most important aspect for me yesterday, and we talked about this a lot during our coverage of the event, was the very clear and thoroughly thought out method by which Apple is introducing Apple Intelligence and kind of setting the not just the groundwork for it, but also kind of how its approach looks and how it differs, I think, from other approaches. And the way that it was so clearly explained. And, we talk about the capabilities that it has, we talk about the architecture, and then we talk about the most important aspect for consumers, which is what can you actually do with it? And I just felt it was very considered, and I really appreciated that aspect of it. I kind of felt comfortable because here's the thing. There are a lot of people, a lot of my colleagues who feel a type of way about generative AI. And for the most part, I've existed outside of that. I understand the complaints about generative AI. I understand the worries and the concerns about how it's impacting different folks. But I am also enamored of the things that I have been able to do with it. And so seeing a more considered approach from a company that I cover quite a bit, I liked that. I was happy that there was that consideration that went into it, and that it was clear that the company said, we're not just going to give you this blank canvas. I think it was actually it was either Tim Cook or it was Federighi who in an interview talked about not just giving the teenager the keys to the car. That isn't what Apple wanted to do with generative AI. Some very specific use cases and some very specific demos showing how it can be used in day-to-day life. And I think that's good.
Let me show some outside opinions. During the event, you and I were watching Apple's stock go down, then up, down, then up. It was down quite a bit. Since then, it's gone up quite a bit. It is now $12 up. It was as low as $191 yesterday. It's up to $205 today. The market says, yay, this is a good thing. Elon Musk says, if Apple integrates OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned in my companies. This is an unacceptable security violation, and visitors will have to check their Apple devices at the door where they'll be stored in a Faraday cage. He's sounding nuts. I think it's only a matter of time before he starts talking about sharks. It's patently absurd that Apple is not smart enough to make their own AI, yet is somehow capable of ensuring that OpenAI will protect your security and privacy. Apple has no clue what's actually going on once they hand your data over to OpenAI. They're selling you down the river. I should point out, Elon has been in a feud with OpenAI. He funded it initially, but pulled out when he decided they weren't going in the right direction, and they wouldn't let him run the show. Sam Altman was at the Apple event, signaling at least some support from OpenAI. And then there's this from Charlie Warzel at The Atlantic. The iPhone is now an AI Trojan horse. Now, that's not all bad. He says generative AI has become truly inescapable. I think that my takeaway, look, I kind of like AI. I don't think generative AI, AI chatbots is all that interesting. I was really glad Apple didn't show that. But there is a lot of things you can do with AI that's really cool. In fact, it's my opinion, Apple Sherlocked AI. Because AI now stands for Apple Intelligence, not artificial intelligence. And I think from a marketing point of view alone, Apple did exactly the right thing. They said this is AI for as you guys have said, for the real people, for the masses, doing stuff that real people really want to do.
And I think that we have to remember that we were talking about this morning in office hours, that most people have not used any AI. So, we talk about it and it feels like something like everybody's using it all the time. I have ChatGPT open all the time. I'm using Midjourney at least once a day. Like it seems like it's all around us. But if you look at the average person using their iPhone, they're not using ChatGPT. They're not using any of those things. So as you look at all the features that Apple's bringing to the device and to the private cloud by itself, that's gonna become ubiquitous with using your computer, and then you are going to very easily be able to jump over and get more if you want to from ChatGPT. So it really is for the Apple consumer is going to introduce a lot of people to AI, and so and a lot of their stuff that they do day to day is going to probably exist on their device or on the private cloud. The Genmojis, the little images, the fun stuff that they're going to do, filling something in, doing some correction, all of that stuff is going to be stuff that is done very seamlessly for them. That's going to be their introduction. And again, because it's everywhere for developers, it has kind of commoditized the service, in a sense that a lot of people could say they were doing AI. Now, most Apple developers could just add it.
I'm sure you're right that most people haven't tried it. ChatGPT had 100 million monthly users at its peak. So somebody's using it. I think certainly the public is very aware of AI. It's been widely reported. I think probably most people have just tried it just to see what would happen. Right. Remember, Microsoft has it built into Windows, the biggest operating system in the world. And, it's kind of hard to get away from it, frankly, in Windows. So I think more people have tried it than you think, Alex. But I do think Apple is being fairly judicious. Tim Cook, in an interview with the Washington Post, admitted that AI is going to hallucinate. Let me see if I can find the quote. What's your confidence?
Yeah, it's like
that might be where they talk about giving the teen the keys.
This is Josh Tyrangiel, who's an opinion columnist, writes about AI in the Washington Post. He says, what's your confidence that Apple Intelligence will not hallucinate? Tim Cook says it's not 100%, but I think we've done everything that we know to do. including thinking very deeply about the readiness of the technology in the areas that we're using it in. So I'm confident it will be very high quality. But I'd say, in all honesty, that's short of 100%. I would never claim it's 100%. So he's hedging a little bit, saying, yeah, you might get something weird. I think the biggest risk they're smart because they're not just kind of giving AI an open field that everybody can just try stuff. But they did introduce a brand new app, Image Playground, which is, this is where Google has gotten in trouble. Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, even Microsoft Designer have gotten in trouble because their AI image generators have been used to generate images. People say, oh, that's problematic. Apple's got an image generator.
Well, but you notice that it's not. None of the demos that they gave showing anything that was nearly photorealistic. It's all like just these playful images, and only 3 styles: animation, illustration style, or sketch. So I think they're putting such strict guardrails on what this is used for and what they're willing to endorse sending out in the world that was generated by Image Playground. That's mostly, make a Pixar cartoon version of your mom riding a horse.
That solves one of the problems, which is people taking AI generated deep fakes and passing them off as real because it's not going to be real.
To have it right there, too.
But it doesn't solve the problem Google had where people said, show me some Supreme Court justices and they were all black, or show me some founding fathers and they were all black. Now, I personally don't think that's a problem, but there are plenty of people who did, and Google had to step back and really retreat on its image generation. How long before iOS 18 comes out? And by the way, this will not come out with iOS 18, right? We're going to have to wait.
It's not out with the betas yet at all. And when it does come out, I think based on the words have been used, it seems like it will be in beta even when it's in public.
Even after the iPhone comes out, probably. I think it's going to be later, much later this year. But how long? It'll be seconds after it comes out before somebody types in, show me some Supreme Court justices, right? Or show me some founding fathers.
I'm curious to see how they block things out. Yeah. Are there going to be words I can't type in?
Yeah. How much safety? And we know that safety does not work because all of these companies, not so much OpenAI, but certainly Anthropic and Google, have tried to be safe.
And there's always quote unquote jailbreaking.
There's jailbreaking. Takes place. Yeah. So,
I'm sure Apple red teamed the hell out of this before they let it go. And this is one of those things that if you listen really closely, you would maybe assume that this is coming in iOS 18 when it's first released, but the only time frame they ever gave for a lot of this stuff was sometime in the next year.
So they're not even done red teaming it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a good demo, but they're not. Yeah, there's so much that, again, the things they learned from Google and OpenAI is that the more ambitious that you get, the more powerful a tool you want to give to people, the more dangerous it's going to be in the hands of people who don't understand what it is, or people who understand exactly what it is and want to use it to perform acts of extreme mischief. And they got time, so they're very, very willing to simply say, okay, we got a great image generator. It really is just for making cartoons and illustrations. It's going to be for things like in Notes. If you just draw like a rough sketch, you can have our image generator turn it into something that's a little bit more refined. Really, the Notes app has so much.
I think we should spend some time on the Notes app. That was really
we'll get to it.
A killer app, huh?
My goodness. Yeah. It reminded me of the Newton and in good ways, not in an egg freckles way, but in a good way. This is.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just not to jump what we're going to be talking about, but I think it was pretty amazing how very quietly they slipped in. Oh, and if you want to, you don't have to just do handwriting to text. You can just do handwriting to handwriting because we will figure out what your handwriting looks like. So we'll do spell check and we will correct the spelling in your handwriting. If you want to use our generative AI to tighten something up, it will tighten it up in your handwriting because we will build a facsimile of your handwriting. And if this were being done by Gemini, it would be a wonderful tech demo. It would be an amazing white paper, but oh my God, the internet would be absolutely choked to death with the congratulations. Now Google knows how to fake your signature everywhere. Apple really set up the stage very, very well by saying that here's what they talked about privacy and basically guardrails before they talked about anything else. And again, they're doing very, very simple things. They're showing exactly what this is being used for. Not now you can make a font out of your handwriting. It's no, here's the way that we can now have your natural handwriting be editable, cut and pastable, and more natural to work with if you like to work with handwriting.
It's really interesting to compare Apple's announcement yesterday with ChatGPT 4.0, the OpenAI announcement, or even Google's Google I/O. Apple really, I'm going to say it again, they Sherlocked AI. They've made it theirs. You have found, I guess they're giving demos today. That's probably where Jason Snell is. You found a tweet talking about this new.
Yeah, photographer and video guy Tyler Stallman had a demo of the new Siri AI system and talked a little bit about that, including the guardrails that we were just talking about, sort of what you're able to do, what you're not able to do. And the way that they kind of, the way that they put it together where you are working on kind of categories and topics. And so you say, I want you to create an image from these 4 ideas and concepts that it then kind of puts together. And it'll show you an image almost immediately and then starts to generate 3 or 4 more afterward. So they had, I think it was a cat that, I can't remember, a cat surrounded by tomatoes or something on stage, but yeah.
I did see a number of people say that what Apple demonstrated on stage seemed kind of trivial and dopey. Like, oh, great. It knows that Craig Federighi's kid is at soccer practice and the travel time is this, and you've got a meeting. Can you make it from one meeting to the other?
I don't think it's trivial because we don't have that right now. So what's trivial about something that isn't currently available to me? That's the thing. I think that this is what everybody else, and this is going to make me sound like a fanboy, but I don't mean it this way. Genuinely, I think this is what everybody else gets wrong when it comes to getting the actual consumer masses, which is that we can't just give this blank canvas and say, I mean, you were just talking about that, Andy. It wasn't, we'll make a handwriting font for you. It was, this is going to look like your handwriting, and you, like, it's just, that's just an aside. Even though you know there was so much engineering that went into that, they don't care about all of the work that went into that.
Yeah, that's
it's
really
about
smart.
What can actually happen with it.
Not to belabor that
Yeah,
point,
no, we're not belaboring it.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies there. It's not about it knows this, it knows this, it knows this, it knows this. It's that I can say to Siri in 3 queries right there, Siri queries, I want to meet with my mom and I want to make sure that there's nothing else in the way. They showed that kind of step by step process. And that made so much more sense than Siri knows this, and this about you. And so can you think of the things you can? No, we're not going to make you think of the things that you can do with it. We're going to show you what you can do with it. And it's going to matter to the people who use these devices regularly. It doesn't have to be just for us nerdos.
I wrote that particular interaction down because I thought it was so impressive, because they were talking about Siri having access to pretty much, again, being a very personal and contextual they had actually a slide with these 4 words on it about why Apple Intelligence they thought was such a big deal. Again, it has access to your personal information in a very safe and secure way, but it also understands the context of what you're talking about. So in a not live demonstration of Siri, they're talking about interaction like Shlomo, when is mom's flight landing? That means, okay, so Shlomo knows who your mom is. They know that, there was an email in which, or there was a message in which her mother mentioned a certain flight number. Now Shlomo is going to actually use a flight tracker app to find out if the flight is delayed and use that to build in a response to that. Follow up, well, what's our lunch plans? I didn't have to repeat what are my plans with my mother on X date. Well, pull out from calendar. How long will it take to get from there to here? We talked about this for the past couple of weeks about how one of the frustrating things about how slow progress is in computers is that you think that it should understand concepts like that web page about ferrets that I was looking at a couple of weeks ago. And it should understand, like, send that web page, which you just found, I don't have to say that, to Sheila. And it knows what web page I'm talking about. It knows who Sheila is. It knows that, okay, well, I don't use Mail as my mail app. I use Outlook as my mail app. So use that app to do that. A lot of really sophisticated things happening to make the most natural, simple, boneheaded thing that we've been expecting and hoping for the past past 20 years actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let me quote Big D, David Wright, in our Twit forums at twit.community. People keep saying that Apple is behind in AI, yet the first 40 minutes, as far as I've gotten so far, so he had to write this right away, is full of AI being implemented in useful ways. I think this is the big problem. Apple and Google have both integrated lots of AI into their operating systems and apps, yet because they don't show an LLM hallucinating, they've missed the AI boat. I thought it was really smart of Apple not to show, for instance, a chatbot, and a conversational thing like OpenAI did with their 4.0.
Exactly. It's not just, I can have a conversation about what's around the room.
Because those are pretty dopey.
And I find it cool because I care about this thing. But think about if I were to go to a diner and pull out my phone and say, watch. And I start to talk to GPT 4.0 and it says, it looks like you're in a diner right now. And there's a plate of pancakes in front of you. That truck driver doesn't give a flying, what.
I know that.
Why does he need, need that?
That's Zooey Deschanel looking out the window saying, Siri, is it raining?
Right.
It's just dopey. Big D goes on to say, I've long said LLM is a problem looking for a problem. And there are lots of areas where AI can make real differences. I'm happy that companies like Apple and Google are putting AI to good use as opposed to bringing useless chatbots that provide the wrong information most of the time. I think it was smart of Apple to focus on utility, even though, as some have pointed out, the utility was kind of mundane. It wasn't HAL 9000.
But that's what we do with our devices, mundane tasks. More often.
Yeah, I mean, that's the.
But it also.
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead, Alex. Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, no, exactly. When you think about Apple again, what does 90% of the people do 90% of the time? It's going to be mundane tasks. It's everything just being a little bit smoother, everything just being a little bit easier, everything just kind of sorting itself out is the thing you do every day, is the thing you do all day. And I think that is going to be the challenge, for other companies that they really most of it is shock and awe. So most of the other AI tools have been, how do I show you the incredible thing that we can do and have you imagine all the great things you can do with AI? And Apple's like, why don't I handle most of your day?
Yeah.
and make this a little smoother.
But I got to point out, that was a demo. Nobody's really used it yet. We'll see. If it can do what they said. Remember, though, Google, it seems like a decade ago, proposed almost exactly the same utility. Remember the Google Note cards? You'd swipe right on your Android screen, and you'd have, you're at the airport. Here's your ticket. Here's your rental car. And Google, by the way, abandoned this, maybe because it wasn't ready yet. But
I think it wasn't ready yet.
I think what came up though also was that's creepy. So Apple has to avoid the creepy line, right?
I think the distinction is that Apple's selling this the privacy cloud, the on your device.
Yeah, they're aware of it, aren't they?
Yeah. They are very aware of it, and they've been building this connection. They've been building this marketing process for the last decade of privacy, so that they can launch things like this and say, hey, I'm going to know everything about you, and I'm going to make everything easier for you. If any other company other than Apple said that, everyone would be like, that's super weird, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want
Especially
you to look at all
Google.
those things and know all those things.
And look what Microsoft's getting the pushback on recall, which is essentially the same idea, right? We're going to keep track of everything you do.
That was insane.
It was not the same. It was like, we're actually going to keep track of everything you're doing. like Apple,
I would submit the biggest issue was merely that people don't trust Microsoft and people do trust Apple, because it's very similar in functionality. It was on device only.
Yeah,
it was locked down.
And the trust is not that Apple's a better company or a more good company than Microsoft. It's that their business model is about privacy. This is how they make money. And so the thing is that from a selfish perspective, they are going to protect your privacy because that's their entire business model, and that's how they make money. And so they have a vested interest in keeping your privacy, as opposed to other companies that are saying, yeah, we want to do it, but it doesn't matter as much. Apple's entire business model is based around privacy, and so that's the thing that's why people trust them. Is not because they have more good in their thing. It's just that they have a very, very strong business model that is based around that.
Well, not be a jerk, but they have a business model that is not influenced by privacy one way or another. That they can afford to go whole hog on privacy because it won't affect their ability to sell hardware.
It doesn't
won't interfere with things. Whereas on the flip side, Google doesn't care about lock-in because they make money the more people who have access to Google, the more money that they make. So this it's a 6 of one and half dozen the other. But it is interesting how Apple has made even in this just 2 hours worth of talks, they've made a very, very consistent point of view about how they want interactions with AI to be. Actually, it's a opinion that seems to be similar to Google, whereas OpenAI and other tools and Claude are there to, hey, our tools will do your homework for you. Trust us. We'll tell you. We'll give you. Ask us for something. We'll give it to you. Don't worry about it. Apple is very, very much no. We don't have a chatbot. You don't talk to us. We're a feature that you can invoke when you feel that it's necessary. Another really interesting part of the State of the Union was AI features that are in Xcode right now. They introduced basically coding assistance tools, and it's not, hey, I need a Swift routine that will do a persistent window that does this. It fills a window with whatever. It as you're programming, it kind of figures out that, oh, I think that you want to do this kind of a routine. I can auto-complete that for you if you want. Or Swift Assist, which is more text-based, where you can actually say, brainstorm ideas is how they kind of were talking about it. They did a demo where the demonstrator was creating an app that shows you all the different Macs in history, and being able to do things like, okay, well, that's in a list. Could you attach like all the sounds to like the right Macs? Like, oh, great. No, actually, it's in a list right now. What would that look like as a grid? And doing things like, if you finally a reward for commenting your code, it can actually get inference from the comments that you've added to your code. Oh, okay, I see what he's trying to do here. So I can refine my suggestion as to what block code to go in here. So once again, not doing your homework for you, not actually being a place that you go to consult this magical genie that has Scarlett Johansson's voice, but simply a flashing cursor that can paste things in automatically that you were probably going to type in yourself.
It's interesting. Apple said Swift only. They don't do it for any other languages.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be a jerk, Andy. I'll let MG Siegler be the jerk from his Spyglass blog. The voice assistant who cried wolf. He starts out, my initial take after yesterday. By the way, MG's been around forever. He's a VC now, but he was a Apple-focused journalist for many, many years. And I think a very smart guy. My initial take after yesterday's WWDC keynote was that Apple was doing AI their way, including in refusing to call it AI, but rather Apple Intelligence. They took the technology, stripped out the hype, and distilled it down to their products in ways that seem both tangible and useful. Compared to other AI events, it's all rather cautious, but that's exactly what it needs to be in order to garner mass usage. While the others dance to the promise of technology that gives good demos, Apple waltzes in and productizes technology that can be useful today. This level of restraint and practicality engenders trust in their products, and Apple's focus on privacy and security just doubles down on that trust, and that has arguably never been more important than it is right now. Except, wait, hold on a minute. I couldn't help but hearing this voice in my head watching the keynote. A voice that sounded a lot like Siri, a voice telling me something that's completely useless in response to a simple query. Such has been the state of Apple's AI, OG AI, sure, but still AI for over a decade now. Siri has broken our trust over and over and over again.
That's why I don't use it.
And by most people don't use it, except for Alex Lindsay, who for some reason still uses it. He says
all I use it for is timers.
Okay, so that's barely uses it. Yeah,
and like I don't like and play this next song. Like I don't need it to. I don't.
If I say, let me see what I found on the web about this, or then I'm talking about Siri, right? I mean, it's a
meme.
It's a meme. So he is skeptical because he says Siri remains at the heart of what Apple's selling as a new intelligent feature. I don't care. Future, I should say. I don't care how nice her new code of UI paint looks. If we ask her about our mom's flight and she can't figure it out or spits back bogus information, well, we'll be back to where we are right now with Larry David screaming obscenities at his phone. That was a great
I guess
moment.
I didn't read it. Watching it, I guess I didn't read that I would be using Siri more than I am now, which is for timers and things like that. I mean, maybe that's fine, but what I'm looking at is all the text injection and all of the
so that demo that he did, which was a Siri demo of the airplane, that wasn't something you thought you'd be using.
No, I'll tell you what, the thing that for me was the drawing in the calculator where he goes, like he starts to go, well, how big is this? Like the thing is that most people don't remember how to calculate a hypotenuse, but if I can just draw something and say, I know this is this high and this is this long, and it just tells you what the hypotenuse is, like that kind of stuff. I was like,
by the way, that's what OpenAI 4.0 showed in the homework demo.
It did, but I'm just saying that but the Apple calculator was, I mean, it's
well, let's get to calculator and notes in just a second, because that is worth an entire segment by itself. I think it's
there was definitely things that stopped me. The thing about the tickets was like, yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I would never do that, but I thought it was cool.
Well, and I don't blame MG for saying, and let's see if it does.
Yeah, that's how I feel actually. I have not given, in all of the updates that have happened with Siri over time, it has not regained my trust enough for me to even give it a shot. So I'm going to give it a shot after this happens, at which point, if it breaks my trust again, then I don't see myself ever using it.
MG says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me for 13 straight years, shame on Siri.
But again, I think that the whole thing is that I think the things that are going to be used heavily are the Genmojis, the make an image that I can use in my demo or my keynote or whatever. The only thing I was kind of bummed about is like these weird little frames that it puts around it. Like I was like, what I'm going to want in Keynote is over a plain white background.
Right.
Like that's what I want these images to be. And if it doesn't do that, then it won't be useful for me.
It's interesting though. The frame is a safety feature, right? It's announcing this is an AI generated.
Yeah, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, I will never use that. And so it was.
Or you have to break out Acorn and take out the frames.
What you do is take it into Photoshop, and then you have to be careful that Photoshop is like looking at all your images, evidently. but you go in there and you'll select it and say, get rid of that. And then it'll go away and then you'll be done. You'll move on. So
let's take a break. I do want to talk about Notepad and Calculator, which turn out to be different facets of the same program. Actually, it's really. Yeah. We thought, oh, isn't that cute? They're adding Calculator to iPad. Isn't that cute? Oh wow, what? Huh? Holy cow!
It was a good reveal because it started off as like, oh, that's just a calculator.
Yeah,
okay,
buttons bigger.
It's the iPhone buttons. Only bigger. Yeah.
Now let me open the secret door and show you what.
Oh my God, what's under the hood is mind-boggling. But we'll talk about that in just a bit. You're watching MacBreak Weekly, the post WWC reaction. We've had a day to think about it. Alex Lindsay is here. So is Micah Sargent, filling in for Jason Snell and Andy Anatko. But first, a word from Ecamm. And I'm glad you're here because you use Ecamm, Micah, every week for iOS Today. Ecamm is the leading live streaming and video production studio built for Mac. You do iOS Today from your home, as does Rosemary, but you're able to do all the things we spent millions of dollars. It's really frustrating. We spent millions of dollars over 20 years building these studios, and you can do it all now with a simple software program on your Mac. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, Ecamm, E-C-A-M-M, is here to elevate your video production. Ecamm Live includes, and that's what you use, Micah, support for multiple cameras and screen sharing. The live camera switcher also allows you to direct your show in real time. You can add logos, titles, lower thirds, graphics, share your screen, drop in video clips, bring on interview guests, or use a green screen. And here's the really good news. It's not just for podcasting anymore. It's not just for presenting anymore. You can do it on Zoom. Imagine making your Zoom calls a video production. Blow the boss away with this. Ecamm for Zoom just came out of beta. It launched June 4th. And it is fantastic. You can automatically send Ecamm Live's audio and video output into a Zoom meeting or a Zoom webinar or a Zoom event. You can create individual participant audio and video recordings during a live stream or recording. You can add Zoom chat messages to your meeting broadcast recording as text overlays. Hey, Joe in accounting just mentioned this might cost something, and he puts it up on the screen. I mean, this is so cool. Check it out, ecamm.com/Zoom. So now there's just one more way to use the best live video production tool ever made. Now you can use it in Zoom. Join the thousands of worldwide entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, podcasters, educators. Yeah, if you're a teacher, bring this into your classroom, man. You do a beautiful job. Musicians use it to perform, and all those other great Mac users who rely on Ecamm Live every single day. Get 1 month free when you subscribe to any of Ecamm's plans. Visit ecamm.com/twit. Use the promo code TWIT at checkout. There's my secret shame if you're not, the quote I gave him, which is really true, if you're not willing to build $1 million studio as we have, Ecamm gives you all the benefits without the cost. In fact, if we were going to do Twit today, we would be just doing it with Ecamm. Ecamm.com/Twit. Don't forget to use the promo code TWIT at checkout. We thank Ecamm for such a great job with a beautiful piece of software and making.
We had Ecamm on last week.
Did you?
On Office Hours.
Did you have Doc Rock on or?
We did.
Yeah.
Doc Rock was on, and so we talked about the new Zoom integration. So now you can just join a Zoom meeting with Ecamm and then deliver all those videos out and start to cut between them.
Wild.
So it's pretty cool.
Unbelievable. So by the way, I think we got to give points to Mark Gurman. Did he miss anything from that keynote? I think he had it all.
Yeah.
John Gruber said on Daring Fireball, it sure looks like somebody who had seen the presentation ahead of time sent his notes to Gruber the day before, or to Gurman the day before. Gruber said that was pretty impressive. And yeah, I don't think he got anything wrong. Did he miss anything?
And either there's at Apple, either that was by design or there's a mole hunt.
Well, that's that's Gruber pointed out. I said people at Apple are hopping mad, but you might say this was a intentional leak to just kind of pave the way, prepare the way.
Well, it could be, but who knows? I mean, it's hard to tell whether. I mean, Apple's not usually excited about that. So I think that there's probably
somebody's in
people
trouble
trying to figure out what happened. That was a little too. He was a little too accurate, and there's probably only a handful of people that know what that
exactly.
But did he really?
That will know all that information.
I still felt like that was quite a reveal. They started to show calculator, which he had said they're going to have calculator for the iPad. Everybody knew that. And look, big buttons. It fits.
Yeah. You were like,
fits the screen. In fact, we were mocking it. I was mocking it. I said, "Oh, nice, big buttons, good job." And then, as you say, the secret door opens, and calculator. And by the way, it feels like calculator and notes are two different views inside the same app.
Because you can basically do a lot of the calculator stuff in notes.
The other thing I loved what Apple did, which they didn't mention AI for the first hour and a half. They didn't say the words AI at all. They just showed all these cool things you could do, like this Apple Notes. And then later they said, oh, yeah, by the way, that was AI in action, Apple Intelligence in action. So the calculator has, and this was the example they used, it has a new kind of pen mode. It's going to sell a lot of Apple Pencil Pros.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Here's solving a problem on projectile motion in table tennis. And they show the angle, the curve. And boy, first of all, just like a spreadsheet, you could change a value. You could say change the X value, and everything else around it changes.
And not only does it change, it changes in your handwriting.
In your handwriting?
Rosemary showed this morning. She just did a simple X plus Y equals and had a value for X, a value for Y.
How did she do this?
Because she has the beta installed.
This is in the beta?
Yeah, this is in the beta.
Oh.
I've used it as well. And when it gave the answer, she hadn't written the number 4 or another number that was in the answer, but just using what was available, it guessed how she would draw a 4.
In her handwriting, puts a 4.
Yeah.
It pops up a graph. If you want to show how X changes over time, you can have a little dial
sort of thing,
and move back and forth through it. This is about the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, this to me is as big as the demo to end, the mother of all demos that Douglas Engelbart did way back when. This was the promise of graphical screens and touch. This is going to sell a lot of iPads, I think. Not just to students either.
The ability to play. I can't wait to see what's teachers who happen to have access to iPads in the classroom. I can't wait to see how they will teach math labs, how they would develop curriculum, develop a unit of like trigonometry based on, look, just play with it, just mess around with it, just draw stuff, change the shape of this curve, see what happens, change the parameters of this equation, see what happens, to see the effects that it has. Because that's, I mean, the changes in math education where it went from this boring, stultifying idea of tables, and handwriting out calculations and teaching you how to do these mechanical calculations that a wristwatch calculator or a phone app can do in like a fraction of a second. Now you have the ability to simply say, well, what does a cosine want? What does a tangent like want to be? What will influence it into changing its shape, into changing its attitude to the rest of these variables, and just mess around with it, having an understanding of the language of mathematics that was completely alien to every other generation. I'm so
This
jealous.
changes how you think of AI because it's not voice. Here, watch this example. Here they showed us a calculator with a paper tape and all that. Then they went to math notes and wait a minute, here's the calculations. The orange part is the answer calculated by the calculator. 96 times 28 equals. It not only reads the text, it gives you the answer in the same format. Now, did Rosemary find this was accurate and reliable?
I have used it as well. It's still got some stuff to work out. It's an ongoing process. Mostly,
it's not out yet. We should point
it's
out.
not
It won't
out
be
yet.
till
It's
this
still in
fall.
beta.
Right.
I would actually say the math part was pretty good. The handwriting part, it still needs some work. So you know how it said it would like clean up your handwriting and sort of bring it in line a little bit better?
Yeah, that
still needs some work.
Kind of funny. Here, watch this.
Yeah, it's called Smart Script.
As you write, you tap it, and oops, it made new, cleaner. It doesn't change it a lot.
No.
It still looks like it's handwritten. Does spell check in handwritten notes. Yeah. That's pretty wild.
That's cool. And then you can also sort of
pasting
move
stuff
text
in from
around.
clipboard turns into your handwriting. That's pretty damn nice.
Look, she moved
Once
some
they get it
text
working.
over to add a word. She's scribbling. Now, by the way, that's straight out of the Newton. In fact, the only thing I miss is that Newton explosion. Yeah, the poof. I was really hoping they would do that. Maybe they will. It's not too late.
They still own the IP, for God's sake.
Use it. It's not too late. This is what the Newton wanted to be. And if this works, this is AI in a way that we haven't really thought of AI, right? And I think that's one of the things that's going to be very interesting with Apple Intelligence is it's not a stupid thing you talk to or that writes text for you. Yeah, you can do both of those things. But things like this under the hood are really very powerful. It does feel like your iPad is alive, is smart, is your little buddy,
your little friend.
Yeah. And I think that, like even if you look at Swift Assistant, I mean, my son started to program in Swift and the ability to say, well, I just need this, I need this, I need this. In the past, people went out and searched and cut and pasted other people's code into their app
from Stack Exchange. Yeah.
And now it's something that he can, and again, it doesn't write the app itself. You're not going to finish an app. I don't think you're going to finish an app in AI, but being able to add the things that you want to very quickly and not necessarily have seen that before is pretty powerful, and then you'll still have to figure out how to link it and ask it questions, so on and so forth. But I think that the speed at which people can develop is going to be interesting. And I do think we're going to see some pretty powerful tools somewhere in the future where you're sitting there describing what you want the world to be like around you with automation and home and everything else going. When I walk into this room, I want this light to turn on. I want this to happen. I want the TV to turn on. I want this to turn off. I want the air conditioner to turn off, whatever it is, and be able to just say that to your computer and have using shortcuts and spotlight and widgets and intents, all of those things start to tie all these things together.
We had a guy call on Ask the Tech Guys, Micah, on Sunday who said, should I install the beta? And we said, in Unity, no. No, but I have to say, I am now extraordinarily tempted.
Oh, boy.
Developer betas are out for iOS 18. Are they out also for, by the way, it's macOS Sequoia. You and I were both wrong on that.
Yeah.
You said Tiburon, I said Shasta.
Interestingly, Tiburon was all over the photos of everything. So on iOS, almost all the screenshots showed the location as Tiburon. I thought that was interesting.
Maybe they wanted it to be Tiburon, and then somebody said, that's shark in Spanish or something. I don't know.
What was your question? Sorry.
Do you need the newest iPad to run the calculator?
That's a good question. In fact, somebody in the chat was saying that was one thing that wasn't incredibly clear. I have only installed it on the new iPad, so I do have it, but I could try installing it on a different one to see.
We did note that the many of the features will not work on the iPhone 14, only on the 15, the most recent iPhone. And I wonder, is that a technical requirement, or is that Apple kind of encouraging people to upgrade, which is their lifeblood, frankly? Here's from 9 to 5 Mac, which iPads can run iPadOS. Well, but see, this doesn't tell you
it's
what the functionality will be.
Yeah.
I do note that the oldest iPad that supports it is the 2018 first generation iPad Pros. And you need a 2019 iPad Air, third generation or later, to support it. So I'm thinking Apple's going to be pretty adamant about having the latest hardware to make this work.
Oh, I bet at minimum they're going to change a lot of the branding and packaging to say the new iPhone 16 with Apple Intelligence. Like, hey, use your great new iPhone 15 with Apple Intelligence, your iPad M1 with Apple Intelligence. And if it's not marketed as blah, blah, blah with Apple Intelligence, that means that you're not going to get the cool stuff. And that will kind of, it'll kind of FOMO you into, making that upgrade maybe a year too early.
Yeah. I was so captivated by Notes that I thought that was the biggest feature. Notes and Calculator. Anything?
It's a great
else that
it's
you
a
want
great
to talk
demo,
about? Yeah.
And realize that we're reacting not even to demos, we're reacting to presentation materials. So we're not really seeing what this is actually going to do. But Apple has a really good track record for this, so maybe we're not stupid to be optimistic that sometime within the next year we're going to get everything that they promised us today.
What are the odds that what we get either this fall with a new iPhone and perhaps new iPads, or later after the new hardware comes out, actually do what we saw? Google's famous for doing demos that never emerge.
And Apple has done that. They've definitely had things that they announced that never made it out the door, but it is pretty
I think the
rare.
odds are high. Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually hardware. When Apple says they've had a couple of things where the hardware never appeared. But it hasn't been. I don't think that I can't remember a time when they said that, other than when people pushed back, some of the stuff disappeared. But I think that as far as a technology they just couldn't get to, I can't remember the last time Apple said that there was going to be a software developed that didn't come out the other end. Unless people threw, torch, it was pitchforks and torches over some of the scanning stuff, right, which you can see why Apple may have been trying to do that preemptively, because you start to look at some of the stuff that Apple's doing now, which is hiding apps based on your facial recognition, locking apps based on facial recognition, and being able to specifically as a user to start to decide that if, there's obviously a lot of great legitimate reasons to have that. There's a lot of illegitimate reasons to do that as well. So I think that the privacy part of that process that Apple's continuing to tighten is putting them pretty close to a third rail, as far as people being able to hide nefarious things on their phone and be able to, lock them, be able to hand you a phone that's open that doesn't necessarily have all that information. For instance, if you're doing all your communication in Signal and it's hiding Signal, you can unlock it and hand it to somebody and it doesn't matter.
Right. They see
like that. Yeah. They see everything but Signal, and they don't know that you're using Signal for something. And so they don't know to even ask for it. So that's the interesting piece of that puzzle.
Let's take a little break. We will talk about some of the other things Apple announced, including the ability to kind of color your icons, move them around at will, new features in Photos. And I would also like to make a list of all the apps that were Sherlocked yesterday, because I think Apple set a new
long list.
A new Sherlocking record at WWDC. We will talk about that in just a minute. You're watching Mac Break Weekly. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. Melissa's been doing this almost as long as the Mac has been around, since 1985. What have they been doing? They make sure that your data is up to date and accurate, especially your address lists. Did you know that Melissa's global address verification and validation service verifies addresses for 240 plus countries and territories? I didn't know there were that many. By doing this, Melissa helps your business, well, in so many ways. Well, I'll give you a few examples. Of course, it improves deliverability, reducing costly errors, mismailed stuff, or duplicates. It boosts your address data accuracy, vital, right? And increases delivery speed. All of this helps to boost your ROI. Melissa has solutions for every industry. In healthcare, better data for better patient care and increased revenue. And you may say, well, wait a minute. What about HIPAA? It is HIPAA and high trust compliant. So yeah, it's great for healthcare. E-commerce. You can use it to create better customer experiences and reduce cart abandonment. Plus, those errors that are introduced either by a customer mistyping their address or phone number or email, or a customer service rep doing that, eliminating those is huge. With Melissa's APIs, you can build that into your software. In financial services, CRM, insurance, real estate, Melissa's got a solution for you. And of course, as I said, you are safe, you are compliant, you are secure with Melissa. Data, privacy, and security are their highest priorities. Melissa's solutions and services are GDPR and CCPA compliant. They meet SOC 2 and HIPAA high trust standards for information security management. They have a really good way to try this out on your Android and iOS phones. And now they've launched a cool all-in-one lookup that works in both Safari and Chrome. It's a browser extension. Highlight this. I love this. I'm going to install this today. Highlight an address, phone, email, or company name. Then control-click on macOS or right-click in Chrome on the text to open the context menu. Select Melissa All-in-One Lookup. The All-in-One Lookup will open a new tab and verify the highlighted text using Melissa's verification products in the background. You can also try the Lookups apps free on iOS and Android.
I use those all the time.
It's really cool.
The Lookups app,
but now having it in your browser, I love this.
Yep.
Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Melissa, melissa.com/twit. Melissa.com/twit. We thank him so much for being such great supporters of everything we do here at Twit. Thank you, Melissa. Safari, getting some new features. Speaking of Safari, I have to say this, maybe, I'm still maybe in the afterglow of the reality distortion field, but it felt like everything, iOS, iPadOS, even watchOS and tvOS, and certainly macOS, got the most improvements that they've had in years.
This was,
I think,
definitely huge. There was a lot. What were you going to say, Alex?
I think we're on the other side of, I think a lot of things slowed down as they got the silicon.
Oh, this is
out.
the Apple silicon effect. I guess you're right.
So I think there was a big slowdown as they moved a lot of code, and there was a lot of heavy lifting that was required and so now they're kind of, I think, largely on the other side of that. And now you're going to, so it's accelerating the new features they can add because they've, there's a lot of foundational work I think that they had to do to get it all working with all the code working with all of the apps and so on and so forth, and took up a lot of energy.
This was, I mean, you put it well, the reasoning behind it. And I was comparing it to the redesign of iOS. What was that? iOS 7 in terms of the number of new features that were introduced, but I think most importantly, the changes to Springboard. This was one of the reasons why we talked about it not being a great idea for people to get the beta. If, anytime
a crashy
you mess with a
Springboard is the worst.
Yeah, and now that you can move your app icons all over the screen, that's going to make a difference. I will say one of the new features that comes along with being able to move your app icons wherever you want to on the screen, which again, I sub in the Android people. Android did it first. Yes, they did it a long time ago. So there's that said. I really like this new option. You have the option, it just says small and large, and these are for the app icons. And basically, the small version has the text, the name of the app below it, just as it is now. That's what we all have. The large version just removes the text and just leaves the app by itself and then makes that app icon a little bit bigger. And that's what I changed it to on my iPad. I really like how that looks. So there's not the little text underneath, because I use,
know what those icons are.
And I use Spotlight to launch apps anyway. Right. So it's just kind of nice to have those app icons there. I will say
Android did that years ago.
They did,
actually, the truth is, because Android allows you to have alternate launchers, multiple springboards, you can do pretty much anything
whatever
with
you
an
want.
Android look and feel. They have the sky's the limit. So this is, but for Apple, this is a big deal because they don't usually let you. They're so tight on their aesthetics.
Exactly.
So Craig has a hound dog picture with a yellow thing around it. He showed how he could make that yellow be the dominant color. All the icons tint yellow. He showed how, in order to make the hound dog visible on his home screen, he can move icons and leave a gap.
Yeah.
This seems like the simplest functionality, but Apple's never had that.
That's dogma. That no pun intended.
Nice, Andy.
Sorry, it's automatic. I mean, the power that people are going to have to be able to arrange the pages of their home screen exactly the way they like it in groups. With sometimes you want some gaps, sometimes you don't want some gaps. It really is a simple thing. Even if it's just a simple thing of I want my wallpaper to be my dog or my kid. I just don't want my kid's eyes to be to be mail and Spotify. I can actually make these things work. I mean, and believe me, part of this is the power to make your phone look absolutely awful, like tacky, like a 1977 sofa from your aunt's house that should have been thrown out 10 years ago.
I was always it felt insulted that Apple thought, if we give you this power, you're going to make it look ugly. It's like, give me a break.
And I'm sure that's exactly how they couch it. We automatically arrange your icons to make it the most beautiful and flowing way.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes.
And I mean, for all that, I was surprised at the changes to Control Center because, boy, is that an opportunity to make a very simple dock for your most common hardware toggles into just page after page, like almost like a second screen, almost like a second phone.
I know,
that's just cluttered with all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm glad that people have the power to now edit that and make different pages for what they want, but
I thought another place that can be customized and have widgets, more widgets dropped in. That's already kind of messy. Sometimes you're swiping over from the left and it's these, and you swipe. There's a lot, and on the iPad, I installed it there and I've been playing around with it, and it's got, I think, 4 screens by default. The first one being kind of the main widgets that it suggests. The second one being secondary widgets that you're used to. So kind of the ones that you would decide to add to Control Center in the past. They're just there on kind of an overflow screen. Then there's the home app controls. And then I think the last one is music and media controls. But yeah, you can go adding as many as you want to. I will say I was happy to see in Control Center finally the inclusion of a power button, because right now people don't necessarily know that they have to do this whole dance to access the power switch or to go into settings and use it, or for whoever does that, talk to Siri to do it. Now you can swipe from Control Center, and in the top right, there's a little power button that you can press. It brings up the slider that you could power it off. I was happy to have that included.
The wake sleep button is way too valuable to waste it on something like waking and sleeping and power on and power off. I thought it was I mean, as with so many other announcements they made today, as important as the thing itself was, and we're making APIs available so developers can enhance this on their own. And so now developers have the ability to create their own third-party Control Center items. I haven't seen the documentation on it yet, so I wonder if they put limitations on what it can actually do. Otherwise, it's like, okay, I've made this functionality as a little app. I've made this little functionality as a widget now, and I'm going to make this app as a functionality as a control panel item. It's like, okay.
James Thompson will do it, I know.
Will Apple users, how will they survive all this freedom? The Control Center. Are they just going to fritz out? I went and got my Pixel phone just to show, because you can use any launcher. I mean, my Pixel phone, the way I've set it up is it has doesn't have any icons at all on the front page. It has the name of, in my case, 8 apps that I use a lot. And if I want another app, I can swipe up and type the first few letters of it. If I want to go to the phone, the camera, I just swipe right, or left rather. If I swipe right, it'll go the phone. I mean, all of those this isn't something Google provided. This is a third-party launcher. So people who use Android are just laughing at us at this point, saying,
well, I mean, I'm glad every time that Apple users get something that was great on Windows or Android. I'm happy every time an Android user gets something that was great on iPhone. This is what competition is supposed to be all about. I am so happy that people who have iPhones might be finding extra functionality that I discovered years ago. Not even with a custom launcher, but when I travel, my front page always has like the apps that my standard go-to apps for everything. But then like I swipe left, and here is like essentially a control panel with nothing but travel stuff. So here is like a calendar. Here are notes that I've typed there of people I'm supposed to see, where I'm supposed to go, map directions, things like that. Swipe another direction. There's media stuff, and the ability to actually just lay this out the way you want to, as opposed to, oh, I'm supposed to swipe up and type the first letters of an icon, or I'm supposed to remember that this app collection was created automatically by the OS and put in this folder, and I couldn't drag it where I wanted to go, but I've managed to stick it someplace where I seem to remember it going. It seems like a simple thing, but
one concession Apple
deal.
made to the outside world, probably thanks to the EU. And they didn't, you could tell they didn't want to say it, but they had to. RCS is coming to messages.
Finally.
And now what's smart Apple did, I thought, was they added all these great features to messages that probably aren't supported in RCS, right?
Yeah.
So you're still going to want messages. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still going to be blue and green. Yeah, I don't think it's not going to take away the blue or green.
But RCS is at least secure. SMS is terrible.
I wanted it because I do have green bubble friends. And so knowing that my message was delivered, that's literally all I care about. I don't care about any of the other RCS magic that can take place, but just that, oh crud, I sent a message that was, 600 characters, and I also sent a photo with it. Did those actually get delivered to my Android buddy, or did they show up in 6 different texts and the photo didn't actually send at all? Just knowing that something's delivered, that's what I care about. That's why I'm happy about RCS coming.
Let's see what else you can. You mentioned these. What do they call them? Flumoji. What is it?
Oh, Genmoji.
Nobody, by the way, except again, Alex Lindsay used Memojis, right? Or do you use?
I
Memojis?
thought you did. Okay, no, that was Renee Ritchie.
But, maybe not us.
No.
Not a huge. Yeah, a little bit. You know what? When I want to shock my mom, I turn myself into an elephant. That's it. It's not.
Oh, you mean the animated ones? Yeah.
Or just any.
I think Genmoji are going to be more popular.
I think Genmoji might be. The idea is these are Memojis.
These are just emoji.
They're emojis that are generative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that I think is going to make this actually work. First and foremost, Apple did something that I've been waiting for them to do for so long. Finally, it's happened. People who've used Slack love the fact, and this has come to all sorts of platforms. Discord has it, all sorts of messaging platforms, and then I just named one, Discord. Anyway, it is on a lot of them, where you
WhatsApp,
you can reply by basically tapping on a message and then putting a little emoji after it. It's an emoji reaction.
Love those.
Slack has let you do it with all emoji. Apple, they call them tapbacks, and for the longest time, you could only do a certain set.
Of them. And it's very frustrating.
It's frustrating.
I don't want to do a heart. I don't want to do thumbs up. I don't want exclamation mark. I don't have that many choices.
It's not funny, so I don't want to ha-ha.
Right.
Now you can do all emoji. But
I use them all the time, nevertheless, as you know, because I'm always reacting to your messages.
Whatever. Yeah, because it's just easy, and you let the person know that you've seen it, and that you're just saying, okay, this is cool. I've wanted to be able to use all emoji. Now you can, but what's great is that Apple said, while we're doing that, let's go ahead and make it so that if you use a Genmoji, you can also react with a Genmoji. Because here's the thing. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about how being in a public school, it oftentimes makes people kind of socially be pressured into defaulting to the mean.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you have your outliers and they get ridiculed. And in many cases, those kids either default to the mean or they kind of go even more fringe. And many of us just default to the mean. To a certain extent, you find your group of people. And I think about with messages, people aren't using Memoji as much because other people aren't using Memoji as much.
Oh, maybe that's what
so many people are doing tapbacks. Yeah. And so I think it was smart for Apple to say, let's make it so that these Genmoji can be used exactly as emoji are used. That's going to make it so that more people are willing to do so.
Jason Snell just dialing in to our Discord says, I am in a perfectly normal place. Okay,
we have blinking a code.
Yeah, it looks like
he's blinking a code.
Yeah, he's
Jason.
Clearly,
look down if you're safe.
He's clearly in a tree-lined indoor environment.
That looks familiar.
Yes. Oh, the cafeteria.
Yeah, it looks a little familiar. Yeah,
I think that the animojis, I think, haven't been very successful. And part of it is because you have to do something stupid every time you want to do them.
Right.
So, you have to I
always stick out my tongue and roll my eyes.
I think that was that was like, okay, how many people are going to do that? So I think that the memojis, I actually think I see. I mean, I don't know. People, my family use them for their profile pictures. People use them for their, they'll send some kind of reaction. But the problem is that they're very limited. Maybe I don't want to do exactly what it's doing there. And so I think that the Genmojis could be give people a lot of creativity where they're not making funny faces at their phone just to send a message. And I think that that's going to be, I think it'll get used a lot.
Just to make sure, though, that there are Apple Messages features that will not translate to an Android device, they've also added the ability to take any text and make it do something weird. So it can be big, it can shake, it can explode, it can bloom, small, nod, ripple, jitter. But you select the text and then it will do that. And of course, that's not going to translate.
Rosemary and I have been annoying each other with that all day.
What's your favorite thing?
Honestly, I don't like any of them. I just like that I can bold text and underline text.
Yeah.
I think I will be using that cross out thing a lot.
That's amazing that it took so long to have basically text formatting.
Yeah, text formatting
in
messages.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Underlining, italics, bold, cross out.
And the good news
here's this React, and you can pick an icon and choose any React there as well. Go ahead, Alex.
The good news for Apple users is that the whole RCS thing has just put a fire under Apple's thing to do lots of new things in messages. So we're getting tons of features, and I'm sure they'll keep on rolling features out to separate them out.
Yeah,
and the basic thing that we've been asking for like all along is that at least the green bubbles will still be green bubbles, but at least they won't break the chat for everybody else who's using iPhone. And that was again a completely arbitrary and mean-spirited choice on Apple's part. It wasn't a technical limitation. It was like, no, they decided that we think that it works well for us if everybody thinks that anybody who has an Android phone is someone who bothers everybody else and ruins the fun time everybody's having.
When asked to blink if he was okay, Jason Snell responded with this creepy ass image. He says, "Yeah, sure, I'm okay."
Image playground.
Yeah, I want to see him using some of this stuff. I do. What is this that they're demonstrating here,
Hallelujah.
Micah?
Hallelujah. Sorry. For the folks who are listening and not watching, you're going, what is he hallelujahing? It is the fact that you can finally schedule messages to send later. I am so excited about this because this is something, look,
murderers are going to love this. I was texting with my friend during the hours of 3 a.m.
Hi, Josh. Well, I'm 300 miles away and my car is broken down. So I just want to let you know it's 11:31 p.m. and I'm here 300 miles away.
There is someone near and dear to me.
They call this the alibi feature.
The alibi feature, fine. Who refuses to set up like a schedule for do not disturb. So this person will get messages at night when they're trying to sleep and then is upset about it.
No,
use do not disturb. They don't. So now I can schedule the messages that I want to send to them, and they don't have to get mad at me because I've woken them up in the night. I'm very excited about schedule. Yeah. I'm also very excited as a person who goes out into the wilderness quite often. I'm very excited about the new satellite feature for messaging.
So explain this. How much can I send? In the past, satellite's just been SOS.
Yes.
In fact, there was so little bandwidth, you had to choose from a menu of pre-populated items. They're now saying you could send text all of a sudden?
But text
SMS
alone, yes. It's not, and it will use, it'll be iMessage.
Too.
It looks, there's emojis in this example.
Emoji or text. They are text. They're
That's
Unicode
right, it's
text.
Unicode text, okay.
So you'll be like, I'm in trouble, and then have like a little angry emoji.
Yeah, my eyes are not blinking. Yeah, because you're right. That's Unicode. So that's the emojis and Reacts, it looks like, are also.
Yeah, I think
text.
you can do Reacts as well. Because that's just sending a little thing to the system saying, make this pop up on that UI. It's not, actually sending an image.
And there's no charge for this?
Right now. Here's the thing, and I actually talked about this too. You may remember that Apple, when they first introduced the satellite SOS feature, Emergency SOS via Satellite, I think is the name of the feature, they said, within 1 year, we're going to start charging for this. Then they extended it.
Yeah.
We don't know how much it's going to cost yet. I imagine that feature is eventually going to cost people.
They're waiting to see how many people use it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they may have found that not many people are using it. It doesn't cost them that much money to run in the grand scheme of things, and it's a great feature. I think that.
Well,
that
it's
may
also
be
a way to keep ahead of. Now, Android has the satellite, right? So it's a way to kind of keep a step ahead of the other guys of the competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I have to say, if you are not using an iPhone and you watch this event, you're going, I want that.
I want that. That's cool.
There's very little you would say, oh, Android does it better, or I'm not going to buy an iPhone because I can have text-only screens. Or, I mean, there isn't a lot compelling on Android. And what's also interesting is a lot of the features that people say, well, Android had it first. They're so fractured and so poorly implemented in many cases that it doesn't feel like a seamless capability. It's just something, Google threw that in too. Let's talk about photos, for instance. A lot of what's new in photos, Google has been in Google Photos for a long time, right?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the biggest growing pains for people. I've already anticipated that this is where I'm going to get the most contact from my family when they need help. I've been playing with the new messages, and for the most part, it's familiar.
Yeah.
But what they've done, because I was actually thinking about this too, when we think about third-party apps, you think about Instagram, you think about Snapchat, you think about some of these others, they do things in their apps to make it so that you open and use the app as much as possible. They're looking for daily active users. But when you're the first-party platform, you don't have to do that as much, right?
Yeah.
However, it made me think about how with photos, I don't really open that app a whole lot, other than as kind of a storage place. And I take things out of it and I put them in other places.
Point. It's there.
Yeah. They are trying to make it so that it is one of the places that you go.
Yeah.
There's a carousel now at the top that it starts out with your standard library that you're used to. But then after you go from that main carousel, you see favorites that pop up and, the recent days photos and your people and pets. There are all of these kind of things that are intelligently shown at the top that kind of encourage you to look at those photos and, celebrate the past, I guess, so to speak. So maybe people will be opening their Photos app more than they do now. We'll see.
Yeah, the thing that really blew me away, apart from the reorganization, I think it makes better use of the screen because the less space you can take up with UI and the more space you can take up with thumbnails as you're scrolling through, the better. But the big deal is again AI being influenced through all this, being able to say, show me all the pictures of Josh when he was learning how to swim. And suddenly you're collecting like 4 years worth of photos because it understands all these contexts begin with. This is some stuff that like you can get on other apps and I think to a limited extent on Google Photos. But this is the sort of stuff that people value doing the upgrade with. The first time when you're trying to put together an album for your mom of moments from the kid's life, and you're like, oh man, but this is really going to take me like a half hour to scroll and find all of this stuff. There's another one of those undemonstrated but illustrated features that they talked about was the ability to just describe a video, saying, give me a video of Leo learning how to fish, which is what they actually
not
used.
this Leo. It was somebody.
A different Leo. Again, maybe they've been.
I have pictures of me learning how to fish. So if you ever want an AI,
but pulling videos and photos and recommended music from Apple Music to assemble a video together, all that really, really powerful stuff from a very, very simple command. Because it's a lot of us in this conversation, including the people listening to us, like if I'm supposed to like put together pictures of someone's wedding, I will so stupidly overthink this and over obsess about it and make it perfect. Whereas no, we just want a collection of photos and videos from the wedding that happened last weekend. Why are we waiting 8 months for it until another year until the kid's born? When just the ability to say, give me stuff from my cousin Sylvia's wedding, mostly affecting like Sylvia's direct family and not the groom's family. And it just knows that it will give you something that is 90% good and good enough to ship as it is.
And I have to admit, even now, before iOS 18 on photos, I get about every day, I get 5 or 6 new photos that I just went and found that are, I don't even know when I shot those. Like they just show up and, I don't have them in any collection. I mean, they're somewhere in my 65,000 images that are sitting there, but it just kind of grabs onto them. It makes a little movie about them. It does, it does all this stuff. And that's before iOS 18. So I think that there's a lot of the tools. I mean, the obvious tool that they put in was being able to remove people and things from from photos, which has of course been around for a while and is around. Generative fill is something that you kind of expected. Like they can't go very much longer without generative fill, and so they solved that problem. But I think that for the most part, Apple's integration is so strong that they don't have to be the front horse. They just have to be in the front five all the time. Like they just don't want people to feel like they're looking at the back of a lot of horses. Like as long as they're somewhere in the front, they can kind of, they just have to kind of keep up with the Joneses. They don't have to lead the Joneses. And so I think a lot of times they're watching what everybody else is doing. They think about it. They think about what's their version, their way of doing it. And then they slowly implement these things. And I think that that's where we're at. And the reality is with phones, everyone just buys a camera and it does a bunch of other things. Like, so it's like if they can get a camera, I had to shoot something with an S24 and, recording video on an S24 is not the same as recording on an iPhone 15. Like it's got a great lens and a great sensor, but the recording process is not quite there yet.
What about the one of the things they absolutely cribbed from Google? They brought Gmail inbox back.
Categories, yeah.
Only it's in Apple Mail.
Receipts. You don't say.
Yeah. This is literally, as far as I could tell, exactly what Google's inbox was.
The categories seem the same.
The categories, you get receipts, you get, important mail. I thought this was really surprising. And yet I think, if I were Spark or some of the other email programs on iOS that purport to do this kind of organization, I might feel a little worried.
Yeah. It's not going to work on me, but yeah.
Especially for a built-in app that everyone needs mail. And what does it take to bust someone out of the default app that's already built in? And if it's something less, I can't use this because it doesn't have this simple sorting feature, or it can't summarize text. It can't say, give me all the email from my boss that was sent last week. That's the sort of stuff that drives people away from the default and into something that's a third-party commercial product. And there are like 4 less reasons to not use mail anymore.
Right. How about 1Password, Bitwarden, LastPass? They got Sherlocked pretty darn good. Apple's always had a passwords feature, but it was always kind of hidden away in Keychain. Now it's moved out of Keychain, out of your system settings, and into a passwords app.
Mm-hmm. And available on Windows via the iCloud for Windows
So
app.
it's Mac, iOS, and Windows, not Android.
Not Android.
Something's missing. Android. That's weird.
And Linux, in some ways, unfortunately, because I do use Android and Linux, I'm a little disappointed. I'll keep using Bitwarden, our sponsor. But for somebody who lives in the Apple ecosystem,
they're settled. They're covered.
You got to use this.
I've been trying to, I still have been trying to get out of LastPass. I have so much in there. And so I've been slowly moving things to the passwords, within Safari. But it's really clunky. It's just a really clunky experience to do that. And this was like, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
I believe I saw that this will import passwords.
It will import passwords. It will also, there's a new feature just across the system where websites that feature passkey logins, they can automatically upgrade your login by adding a passkey. It'll keep the password and everything, but it'll also do a passkey login as well. Yeah. So this stores passkeys, it stores passwords. It also has that feature in it where if a site is breached and it's heard, people know about it, then there's a section of the new passwords app that lets you know, hey,
it'll also tell you if your passwords are bad.
Yeah. If you've got really crummy passwords. Yeah. And then it also does verification codes, so it can do OTA.
One advantage Apple has with Wi-Fi, if I'm on a Wi-Fi, we get to a hotel and I log into the hotel's Wi-Fi, then when Lisa opens up and says it will get it for me, I think they're going to do that with passwords as well.
Well, there's also
a very interesting way to share passwords.
A button within the passwords app where if you go into it and you go to a Wi-Fi password, it lets you generate a QR code right there on the spot that you can share with people.
Isn't that great? Now, this is going to be protected with Face ID. Many of Apple's built-in apps now will be protected with Touch ID, if anybody still has Touch ID, and Face ID, biometrics.
The new iPad Air has Touch ID, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I have Touch ID on my Mac, too.
Well, that's the big question, though. Yeah, I'm sure it'll import. Will it export? So if you do decide to leave the ecosystem at some point, how hard is it going to be to get all of your saved passwords out?
Yeah, passwords, I will have to check that out. I'm going to try that. I know that passkeys are still non-transferable, but I will see if passwords are.
And in general, I think that Apple is slowly moving towards just having passwords become less and less something that's conscious to the user, and it's just kind of in the background, and you're going to use your Face ID, because this will get to a point where you're just not really ever typing a password in. If you go down this path with it, it's all going to be you just pick up your phone and look at it. And that, and I got to say, passkey is like, that is so good catnip. Yeah. I mean, I'm not at the point yet where I have the expectation that I'm going to see passkey. Like it's right now, it's in that moment of, ooh, they have passkey, like B&H has passkey, or this has passkey. There's some point in the next year or two that I will get into, oh, they don't have passkey. Like kind of like a, like I'm not, I have a lower opinion of that brand because they don't do that, but it's not there yet. But I think there's a year or two before it does get there, where Apple users will be less likely to use your platform because you're not doing something that they expect to be smooth.
Let me continue the Sherlocking. All trails might be a little bit
graveyard.
Yeah, the graveyard. All trails might be a little threatened by the fact that they are now going to have hikes in Apple Maps. Grammarly is going to be threatened by the fact that the grammar checker is going to be built into all text fields now.
I want to say a thing about the hiking. I bought every app for hiking, and I wasn't happy with any of them. Like I just, I over time, I just didn't find myself using it. And so I have to admit that I just think that no one really got it, where it was super simple and it just worked. And it just was part of what I was doing. I walk an hour and a half a day. Like, so it's not like, like a through the woods. Like
Apple
I want to
gave All Trails, though, the App Store award.
They mentioned superhuman
and
email too.
Trails.
I mean, Apple's happy to give. They don't want to look like they're monopolistic or anything.
Right.
Right.
I'm really excited that it's coming into iOS, because, as I said, I thought I don't hike often enough to pay for how expensive All Trails is. So I was happy that it's going to be in there, because I do it just enough that this will be great.
This is often the case. All Trails is
like pro.
A little bit better. It's a little more pro. Mm-hmm. This is the rewriting capability with the writing tools. And this is going to be, I think, across the board. You can proofread, you can rewrite, you could choose whether you want to be friendly, professional, or concise. You can get a summary, you can get key points. You could turn things into a table or a list. Mm-hmm. I think these are going to be useful. This is something Google offers in Google Docs. Microsoft offers in Microsoft Office with Copilot.
No, but those features right now are happening on the phone, right? I mean, those simplifications are going out of the phone or to the private cloud. I mean, I only say that because
on device.
Google ones are definitely not.
Yeah, no. Neither Copilot nor Google is on device yet.
Right. So I believe that all these small corrections that are there, if you want to go out to generate something more, you're going to use ChatGPT. But a lot of these grammar corrections and shortening and everything else is either happening on the phone or on the private cloud. And that's one of the big advantages that Apple has, is all these little things are not going anywhere. Anytime you want to do more, you go to ChatGPT, but you have to say, yes, I want to go to ChatGPT every single time you.
First of all, to clarify, there are three different kinds of AI that's going to be on these devices. There is there is on-device AI, there's Apple's basically secure cloud AI, and then there's ChatGPT or OpenAI, where, as you say, if it's going to send something out to OpenAI, it will first say, do you want to do that? Or here's what's going to happen. Do you really want to do this? And that was also kind of interesting too, because Tim Cook at the end made it very clear that they're not really married to OpenAI, that they're open to other LLMs or open to other chat systems, and who knows, they're hopefully kind of working on supplanting OpenAI, supplanting Gemini as well. So it's not as though this was a big, huge partnership. It's great for OpenAI, great for Apple for certain things, but I think nobody really expected that OpenAI was simply like 1/3 of the Trinity and maybe the smallest part of the pie. And just to be clear, though, Google's Gemini comes in 3 different sizes. One size is an on-device model, and I believe, I have to double check though.
They just shipped that this month the Google Gemini Nano is now available on your Pixels. So
And also to be one of the great equalizers here is that, like, I don't think any makers of any language model or any chatbot really want you to push every single request into the cloud or onto their servers, because now they have to deal with the compute, they have to deal with the electricity to keep these servers running. They would much rather have you burn up a little bit more of your battery and keep it on device, and then say, "Oh no, privacy, integrity, security. Oh no, we please, we can't afford to keep giving you free. If we can't give you free summaries for the rest of our lives, we need to make some money."
Additional features in iOS 18 game mode. They're really pushing the games. And Ubisoft was there saying, yeah, we're going to go day and date with the next Assassin's Creed.
That was pretty cool.
I thought that was very interesting. It's a very popular AAA game, and it will be released on Macintosh and iPad and iPhone at the same time as it's released on Windows. That's interesting. Apple Pay now has the ability to tap phone to phone. I thought the AirPods announcements were pretty interesting, including head shake or head nod.
Yes.
You can accept a phone call by nodding. You can decline it by shaking, including, I presume, robocalls.
Yeah.
Like say, no,
please.
no. They're adding voice isolation, the same feature that you have now on your Mac, and iPad will also come to the AirPods. They demonstrated it. We'll see if it's as good as they demonstrated it. They demonstrated it very noisy. Yeah. But we've seen AI do this very well. Google's had this for a while as well.
You can nail.
Journal. No journal on iPad. We do have day one, which is nice, but journal is limited to iPhone. They've added a lot of new features, including a mindfulness.
It's so wild to me that it's not on iPad, because I
want to use it on iPad.
If they don't want to cannibalize people using notes for doing handwritten notes or something, because if it was me, I would want to use Journal and write my notes in Journal.
Exactly. Maybe they don't want to put day one out of business. But day one doesn't have the same, on iPhone it does, but on the iPad it does not have the same suggestions feature, which I really like. Calendar is going to show events and tasks from reminders. That's great.
That's a real small thing that honestly should have been there.
Yeah, for a long time it should have been there. The Health app has redesigned medical ID, which is a very important feature for first responders. If you have not filled out your medical ID on your iPhone, do that right now. Live video and emergency SOS?
Yeah, pretty cool. So there are some emergency responders around the country who are able to receive video and photos. And you can imagine if you'd fallen down a ravine or some other thing, you could show what's going on around you to that live responder. They are able to send that to the people who are coming out to you and see. So this is a special thing where there are only certain relay areas around that have access to this, but when they do, you will be able to do that as well.
Well, and if you haven't seen, I mean, I'm going to warn everybody, don't watch this if you're squeamish, but if you haven't seen the YouTuber who had a paraglider that he crashed because he was filming the whole thing with things, but you see him like calling telling Siri to call 911, and he's calling 911, and there's a certain level of confusion. This is where you can see these tools starting to become useful. He still would have been there for a long time if some other person hadn't walked by and been able to pick up the phone and talk to them. Right. And so these being able to send more of the telemetry data, send video, send everything else would have, will make a difference for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. They
didn't show this, but I thought this was cool. In accessibility, they're adding music haptics.
I think this is, we talked about this on iOS today because Apple has now started to announce its new accessibility features ahead of time whenever it's World Accessibility Day. And so in music haptics, if you have a device that has a Taptic engine in it, basically it will do different vibrations and taps to the beat of the music. So someone with low or no hearing is able to kind of enjoy the music in that way. And then also eye tracking is coming to, I think it's M1 iPads and later, where just like on Vision OS, where you are using your eyes to look around at things, you'll be able to use your iPad with that front facing camera and the, the true depth sensor to do eye tracking on the iPad as a means of accessing different parts of the UI. Very, very cool.
Neat. All right, let's take any other Sherlocking that we want to I mean, there was a lot of it. Anything we want to pay attention to?
I don't have a Sherlocking. I just have a feature that
What's the feature?
The feature I was very excited about. You may remember I loudly shouted.
I do remember.
Excitement.
You hurt my ears.
I did hear. Yes, I apologize for hurting your
you were
ears.
so excited.
There's now iPhone mirroring on the Mac, and I am endlessly excited about this. So basically, what will happen is you can pull up, almost like it's an app on your Mac, your iPhone screen, and you can do everything you would ever do on your iPhone from your Mac. What's great about this is there are times where I have an app that's on my iPhone and I either don't have access to a version on the Mac, or the version that I would have access to, maybe it's a website or it's an iPad app that they've given. It's not the same. The iPhone app is unique. It has unique features, but I have a lot of text I want to type out, or there's some interaction that I want to do. It'd be so much easier to do on my Mac. Or maybe I'm sitting at my Mac and I just want to be able to quickly interact with something from my phone. Not only can you bring your phone screen up on your Mac and interact with your phone, it keeps the phone locked. So that way people can't see that you're sort of, accessing it from remote. If you have it in standby mode, then it will stay in standby mode while you're accessing it from your Mac. But then what's great too is that they're bringing drag and drop functionality. So if I was working on a project on my Mac and I needed to go and do something and I knew I was going to be away for a while, I could drag the file onto my iPhone and basically have it there, open it up as I needed to, and move on. Or if I get something from my iPhone, I can drag it from there to my Mac and be able to access it there. Lastly, the ability to see notifications from your iPhone and interact with those notifications. So if you got, my main use would be like Instacart. I get Instacart notifications, and I oftentimes am trying to send something back real quick. Getting that on my Mac and having it just pop up my little iPhone on my screen. Nice. It's going to be so great. Yeah. So I am very excited about iPhone mirroring on
this.
The Mac.
I have to do this. Mm-hmm. Windows has had this feature for a few years. It's called My Phone. It was originally called Phone Link. It doesn't work with most phones. Mostly works with Samsung. And it's janky. When this works well, this is going to be a great feature and is big ecosystem lock-in. In fact, a lot of what I took away from WWDC was you really just want to live in the Apple world. Because now that everything's on Apple Silicon, there's this cross-platform play that is very strong. Remote access, remote phone, notifications, all of that continuity really makes you want to live in the Apple world. And that's good for Apple.
The integration, unless you're Apple size, makes no sense at all. Like to be totally closed and have a walled garden is unsustainable.
Or if you're an open platform like Windows. Because there's so many people. Right.
But being able to control everything allows you to build something that, again, keeps on becoming more and more impenetrable. And it's why really Apple's only competition at this point is antitrust. Because it's just that because they just have there's an advantage to all of these devices interacting with each other that is just hard to do if you don't have all those devices and the development platform and, the all of those things together become very, very difficult to compete with.
Oh, I know what your favorite feature was, Leo.
What?
Leo, he wouldn't.
Did I scream at this one?
He was just celebrating so much and wouldn't stop vibrating.
Yeah.
Travel mode for Apple Vision Pro.
Oh, thank goodness I could ride a train now.
Trains, yeah.
And why? Okay, so as the sole person who uses a Vision Pro, Alex Lindsay, why is a train different than a plane?
Because of I think because it's to the ground, so it doesn't know what you're doing. So the plane and train would be different because of the way it's moving. This is the only way I can.
So there's not a unified travel mode.
Because you're not supposed to use it while you're driving a car. So you would never need a travel mode there. Yeah, but if you're in a train, you need something to say, stop anchoring it to this GPS position. I need it to move with the train. That actually makes sense. Okay.
Huh. Okay. I'll take your word for it. I'll never know. Although Dr. Do in our chat room says I ride a train at least weekly, so it makes a big difference.
And now you'll ride it with your Vision.
Now you can wear your Vision Pros on your train.
The big cheer that people seemed to get for Vision Pro was, hey, now I can get on my Mac and have an ultra widescreen virtual monitor.
Like a wraparound,
Yeah, exactly. Like the Geordie LaFleur version of the wraparound monitor.
Today in the New York Times, Kevin Roos, can Apple rescue the Vision Pro? The $3,500 spatial computing device has gathered dust on my shelf. Can tweaks and upgrades save it from obsolescence? There wasn't a lot of Vision Pro news, but from developers' point of view, Alex Lindsay, was there enough to make them say, oh yeah, this platform's really going and growing?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for developers right now. There's not a lot of the issue is it sits on the shelf because there's not enough content yet, which is a great opportunity for the developers. So that there's not there, and you have a lot of people who bought. If you develop, I mean, I've talked to a couple developers that have been building Vision Pro or have built Vision Pro apps. If you're selling for a lot of money or a big subscription, that has not been that successful. If you're selling something, if you put out an app that's kind of fun, that's under $20, a lot of Apple Vision Pro people spend a lot of money on this headset and they'll buy it. They'll buy it. I know that for me, pretty much anything that looks remotely interesting under $5, I'm going to buy. I'm just going to I'm going to buy this and try to, because I just want to see what's happening there. I think that you can see glimpses when you look at Jigspace. Jigspace is one of the ones that I just feel like you just see where this could go pretty quickly. I think that I'm surprised at how poorly Apple's content lands for me. I think that the dinosaur stuff was pretty impressive. I would love to see them take it to the last. As a CG person, they've taken it 85%. I'd love to see the last 15% filled out. I know that that's an order of magnitude more expensive, but it's really good. Just not all the way there. The video stuff, I don't know where the thought, like the parkour thing, I just found to be completely anticlimactic. Like I just did not, like I watched it and I was kind of like, when is this going to end? And it was just,
dang,
like I was just like, it's just like, I didn't want to not see it. So I was like, this is going to get better somewhere. And it never did. And it, I thought I was going to get somewhere, and so I just feel like, and I feel like the MLS stuff was over edited. The parkour stuff's over edited.
But let's talk about WWDC. They announced the new Vision OS 2.0.
All I was going to say is that Apple's doing a very good job of promoting it. I just think that they're not.
So yesterday was their opportunity.
Yeah.
What'd they do?
I mean, I think that there's more resolution, so you're going to get, they've made some minor upgrades to the, it's good. I mean, you're going to see more resolution in some of when you're seeing the screens, and as a person that has 8 screens on my desktop, the screen thing doesn't mean anything to me, but I can definitely see how people would want to have more resolution there. But I think that their primary problem, again, with the headset is that they're doing exactly what they did with books, which is that they built a revolutionary platform and then didn't do anything with it. And they didn't promote it. They didn't put money into people doing things that get people excited about using the platform.
The new Canon lens, does that excite you? That's an opportunity to make it even
it's a cheaper lens. I already have a Canon lens that looks just like that one. I mean, the Blackmagic had us all excited. The Blackmagic camera, that's an 8K per eye solution. It's got, we believe, 4 Ethernets out the back, which means that theoretically that camera can stream 8K per eye, out, and because that's not a shot in the dark, because Blackmagic makes switchers, and encoders and all those other things. So there's a future potentially by the end of the year where you're streaming 8K per eye, 90 frames a second to headsets. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's probably a couple years away, but there's a possible future of that. That camera is the first true production immersive camera that we've seen come out that isn't some kind of art project. Look, it's all the ones that we do up until now, and this is a problem. This is a huge problem. This gets back to what I was just talking about. You don't see a lot of content because it's really hard to shoot that content because all the tools are all art projects, and so getting past that and having a real camera that just acts like a camera that just shoots the content, and Resolve is going to be able to support that content in spatial. You're going to be able to add graphics to it. You're going to be able to do all the things you need to do to make that happen. And Final Cut, of course, will do that as well. And so this camera potentially is a big thing. And sure, the camera's going to cost a lot of money. I bet you the camera will cost somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000.
Like they say it's like an Ursa without the lens.
It's a big Ursa.
Yeah, it's a big Ursa.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's going to be in that kind of $15,000 to $25,000 or $30,000. But you rent those. A $30,000 camera rents for a couple grand a day, right? And that becomes a production possibility, and with it all built in, and you just push the button and you get the thing out the door that makes the content. That's going to blow up the content for these headsets. Anybody who's seen good 180 stereo, especially anywhere near that resolution, we're talking 8K per eye, 90 frames a second. A camera being able to generate that is going to change the game. Is going to be a game changer, and I think that Blackmagic is the right partner for them, because they can build that kind of flexibility into the camera. So I thought that's exciting.
I thought keyboard pass-through was also very important. So that's something that's been available on mouse use and keyboard pass-through, something that's been available with the Oculus, because that was one of the big complaints that I had using it. If I was going to be using this as a productivity tool, this spatial computing device, not being able to access or see, rather, I'm a touch typer, so I don't have to look at my keyboard, but knowing where it is and not sort of fumbling around looking for it, would be good.
Live captions for accessibility. That's interesting and everything. Go ahead, Andy.
I mean, I'm more looking forward to, like, the thing is, like, if I'm hoping that Apple tries to move past the idea of immersive 3D entertainment or edutainment or whatever, because that's something that can be matched really, really easily. That's not something that requires a huge amount of 5-year planning and sophistication. I'm hoping that they really do deliver on this idea of no. This isn't a VR headset. This is a new spatial computer, running a new class of apps that you've never been able to imagine before. And I think that's their obligation to really put this platform forward. There were a couple of things in the platform in the platform video about, like, new things that they have this new thing called Tabletop Kit. I don't know if you saw it, where it really is an entire set of APIs for just doing tabletop games in VR. Where, like, and it's so, like, fine grained that, like, the first step is, do you want the table to be square or round? You get to decide that, and each person has a chair, and here's all the different things you can put on this tabletop game. And of course, it's not just doing Parcheesi or Monopoly, but the idea of creating an entire new set of gameplay powered by Tabletop Kit. Another one that's just very, very simple is the ability to have two volumetric apps running at the same time, which I think is, if you really do want to say that, no, this isn't all about, hey, wow, cool, look, there's a dinosaur, or hey, wow, cool, look, here's the Minecraft thing, and I can actually spin it around, take a look at it. The ability to have a couple of things inside my environment that I'm interacting with for two different projects or two different elements of the same data set, I think that's going to be very, very interesting too. It's going to take it is really going to take a couple of years before we see any of this really make for fruition.
Yeah, and the problem is that they needed to get it out. Like, they have it sitting in the lab. They needed to get it out. They need a couple 100,000 people to test it for them and create some kind of market and let people start to play with it, or they're never going to figure out what they need to do for the next version 3, because version 2 is probably already spec'd at this point. But I think what's interesting is you are seeing them continue to tweak. People talked about it being overbuilt, but now you're seeing increased resolution. They may have built it for 2025, and they're slowly turning up the dials as they go down that path. I do think that the frame rate makes a difference in the resolution. The 8K per eye and 90 frames a second may seem like a minor thing, but it does change how you look at it. And Meta has had a huge time advantage over Apple and hasn't gotten there yet. So it's not trivial, especially here's the problem. At 90 frames a second at 8K per eye, I don't think that any headset other than Apple Vision Pro can do it at that resolution and that frame rate. So they don't have the processing power because they don't charge enough for them. So I think that that's the distinction that Apple's making, is we can do these things to these headsets and in a way that I'm not clear that the Meta headsets can do them. It has the processing power to turn that on. And again, there's a lot of stuff that people haven't seen around the footage that's possible at that frame rate and that resolution. And when they see it, pretty compelling, And one thing, by the way, I wanted to point out is in the tvOS, they talked about bringing out voices again. And I just want to point out, people can't figure out why people aren't going to the movies. I can tell you half my family won't go to the movies because they don't have captions.
Need captions. Yeah. Gotta have captions.
And it's like the sound designers in Hollywood are destroying their own
really
industry.
Are.
They're just wiping it out because they can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know,
and now Apple TV has to bring up the voice. So even if you have a center channel, it's not enough. You really need to. It's amazing. By the way, probably from a developer point of view, the biggest announcement about Vision Pro was it will now go on sale in Asia, China, Japan, Singapore.
A lot of people I know are excited about that. Yeah,
opening up a bunch of markets for Vision Pro that just couldn't get it in the past.
And remember that they already sold over half of what we thought was the upper limit of what they could sell in 1 year, just what they could make in a year. So it's not. I think that the press gets a little, gets a little overbuilt around this. I think this is all a test year.
Does this feel a little bit like the Apple version of the 1984 commercial to you?
Oh dear!
You're not showing it. Let me show it. Here it is. Especially these people all in their uniform chairs. Obviously, those are the press, right? I don't know who those people are. I just wait for somebody to run down.
Oh, that's the backyard outside of the cafe.
Yeah, it's the backyard. People run down the aisle there with a hammer. Anyway, let's take a little break. We're going to come back with more in just a bit. You're watching MacBreak Weekly, brought to you today by Wix Studio. They're giving me 60 seconds to tell you about Wix Studio, the web platform for agencies and enterprises. So here are a few things you can do from start to finish in a minute or less on Studio. You can adapt your designs for every device with responsive AI. You can expand Wix Studio's pre-made solutions with back-end and front-end APIs. You can generate code and troubleshoot bugs with a built-in AI code assistant. You can switch up the styling of hundreds of web pages. I'm talking fonts, layouts, colors, all in a click. Add no-code animations and gradient backgrounds right there in the editor. Start a design library. Package your code and UI in reusable full-stack apps. Oh, and one more big one. Deliver everything your client needs in one smooth handover. All right, my time's up, but the list keeps on going. Step into Wix Studio. See for yourself. Go to wix.com/studio or click on the link in our show notes and you can find out more. That's wix.com/studio. I did it. Thank you, Wix, for your support of MacBreak Weekly. All right, what else? What else is going on in the... did we cover everything of great importance? I feel like we did.
I think we covered...
It was a good WWDC. I think they did a very good job. The day before on Twitter on Sunday, I said Apple's got a big challenge here. They're going to look like they're playing catch up, and that's never a good look. That we've got that too is never a good look. Although it happens a lot in Apple world. They're a product company. They need to show that AI has some real value. I thought this was going to be a bigger challenge. It turns out. They aced it. They
knew what they needed to do.
They aced it. They made it. AI is now Apple intelligence, as far as I can tell.
Well, they still have a lot to actually deliver, but they did. All they had to do was put together a compelling story about here's the role that AI has in Apple and all of our products moving forward. And the wrong answer would have been, hey, look, we've added these two new features to Mail, or hey, wow, we've actually licensed we've licensed stuff from OpenAI, and now you're going to see that their chatbot has a lot more access to OS. That would have been a total failure. Instead, they did, again, they have a lot to still demonstrate and a lot to still prove, but the idea that the iPhone will make you feel left out a year from now. You'll be looking over your shoulder at a Windows laptop from your MacBook. You'll be looking over your shoulder at an Android phone from your iPhone, saying, "Why can't my phone do that? Why can't my MacBook do that?" That fear is now, I think, they've managed to dispose of that completely. They're not going to get completely there within the year, but they're definitely we've thought about this. We have not just a set of goals we want to make, but we have integrated AI into the future of our products, just like we integrated Apple Silicon into the future of our products. They are inseparable from each other.
I stand corrected. I take that correction. It is a marketing victory yesterday. We'll see if it actually materializes. But they certainly position themselves as winners.
Well, And I think that they can, as Andy just said, they have a track record that's much different than a lot of other folks of throwing things out and then they kind of come out. I think Apple generally is pretty careful about saying what they're going to do and then generally sticking with it for quite some time.
Yeah.
So I think that the chances of what they were delivering or said that they could do there may not be ready today. But the chances of it not working, I mean, again, there's been a couple of hardware areas that just they quietly disappeared, or there's been things where there was a lot of uproar. I don't think Elon Musk is going to be enough uproar to take ChatGPT out.
In some ways, that just helped Apple.
Yeah.
Oh, the crazy guy doesn't like it. Good, I like it.
They're like, thanks, Elon.
Here's one thing that Android users apparently were really wanting. I don't know why. T9 dialing. Really? That was something you wanted, huh? That is what? The ability to dial phone numbers from your address book by typing the first 3 letters of the name, 564 for JOH.
Yeah, so you basically could do T9 search as you were typing in a number. So if I was wanting to look
I will
for,
never use
beep,
that.
beep, beep. Yeah, apparently Android users did. So if they made the switch to iPhone, they're like, why can't iPhone do this?
I didn't even know I could do it.
That's lame. But I'll give them one thing that Android fanboys can absolutely lord over Apple. In 2012, at their developer keynote, they sent an actual person skydiving.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, very
Not
true.
this fake stuff.
I pointed that out right at the beginning. As Sergey Brin actually did skydive into Yerba Buena Center for Google I/O. Craig Federighi with his hair hat.
That was funny.
His hair helmet.
That
was simulated.
I can tell you from personal experience, that was a lot of jumps to get ready for that show because I worked on that show.
For the Sergey Brin one? They had a lot of rehearsals? Wow.
There was probably 20 jumps and a rehearsal jump the day before onto Moscone. But there were 20 jumps. There were a couple in the Southern California, a whole bunch in Ames, and then, and these are all the Red Bull jumpers. And it was it wasn't just the jumping part is easy. It's figuring out how you stream from glass down. So we had to actually, the reason that they had smoke coming out of their ankle is so that the people tracking them, because literally there was a dish doing a microwave track to each person jumping out. And the smoke made sure that they could keep knowing who's who when they're jumping out of the blimp. And the conversation, of course, was, we won't know if we're streaming from the headset, if their chute doesn't open, we won't know until they hit the ground. It'll happen so fast we won't be able to respond.
Holy moly!
And what would your response be? Get the net.
Well, no, there was a question of do you have a record? Do you have a thing? There was just a
hope the chute opens.
That whole process.
That would be bad.
It's just but
really
of course
put a damper on the keynote.
That was an incredibly complicated, expensive, and amazing. I mean, it all worked.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. It was one of my favorite shows I've ever worked on. Yeah.
This had a little bit of a reminiscent of the YouTube year-ender where they all jumped out of the battle bus. It felt a little bit like Fortnite,
I think
right?
it's taken. I think it was taken almost. It was from Deadpool. It's a makeup. It's from
Deadpool, huh?
I haven't done frame for frame.
The other thing that was weird is Phil Schiller's driving the plane. And he's got an iPod, like a classic iPod in the front there. He says, I'm getting too old for this. That's pretty wild.
Did you see the watch when they opened it? The little insider thing, that the watch there's a little circle that he puts the watch up to open the door.
Oh, I missed that.
Mm-hmm. And those are at Apple campus. That's opened the door. Well,
it's Apple Home Key. In fact, the Apple Home Key will now work from 6 feet away. Was one of the announcements that they made. The other thing I had to ask our video expert, you keep showing it. They won't pull us down. The other thing I had to show, and by the way, I like the rainbow. Was that
I was going to say
to Pride?
I don't know.
Just quickly. I don't know if it was Pride, but it's been a long, long time since we've seen Apple fly the original 6 colors of the Apple logo so prominently. They have that bandstand thing in the middle of Apple Park, but never hey, we're going to put this on every single jumpsuit. Yeah. And also every the titles of so many of the slides in the presentation were like a rainbow fade in the 6 colors. Again, I don't know if
I like it. They're bringing it back. That's great.
I'm glad.
Now, here's the question, though, for you, Alex Lindsay. Was Tim Cook really on the roof?
I think he was. We talked about it.
Lisa Jackson was famously, right?
Yeah,
some years ago.
I definitely think that he was on the roof, and I think that
you put your $1 billion CEO.
He's got magnet shoes. It's fine.
I'm sure you got a lot of safety around it that might have been rotoed out.
Yeah,
but if you look at the interaction, and also it functionally, I really thought through the lens. We talked about this in office hours this morning. That's all we did is talk about this keynote. But one of the things that that I think is that a lot of stuff was done in camera because it would be hard to composite if you shot it with an iPhone. So as I thought
that's right. They did say this was shot on an iPhone, edited on a Mac.
They shot this whole thing on Mac. And I think you can see it. I think that there's some issues with the black. There's some issues with contrast. There's some issues. I mean, the iPhone is not an Airy. So there are some, definitely as a film person, I think I can see things that I feel like didn't quite make it, but it was still very impressive. But I think that also drives that a lot of things were done. Like I thought that,
here's an example that you probably talked about on the office hours. Tim finishes talking, and now that's an easy cut, right?
That's a transition.
That's
you're
pretty
just building
straightforward.
That transition.
Yeah.
That's CG in between, right? And then, but I think that at first I thought that was green screen because I thought his feet weren't very good. His feet contact wasn't very good, but I actually think that might actually be the real thing.
Okay.
And so I think that, and like when Craig is in the Steve Jobs Theater, at first I was like, that's got to be green screen and ADR because it
sounded like he was in the theater. Yeah.
No, it didn't. It did not sound like it was in that room. That's all glass. That's curved glass.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
Everything back in.
So he recorded it later.
And so
yeah.
I think what they did there, though, we thought about it a little bit more, and I think that what they did is he shot it without that screen there. Then the screen is added via CG in there. And then I think they ADR'd it. Okay. So I think it was an ADR.
Recorded the dialogue after.
Yeah.
How about this?
They looped it.
How about where he emerges from his flight suit? I was really curious how they did this. And then it just goes, is that real?
Breakaway.
It could be breakaway, or it could just be him just grabbing something. They do it with CG. Yeah. I mean, like that would be, you could
notice it's gone, by the way, and later in the shot. So it's
a cloth sim. I mean, it could be a cloth sim. It could be a breakaway. I felt like it might have been a cloth sim and not a breakaway just because it was so smooth.
It was too smooth.
But you could build something where it's just barely attached to you and you take a couple steps and rip it off, but it would take so long, and you could do it with CG, because they had all the money.
So long as we're talking about these little details, I don't know where on social media or some site pointed out like all the speakers are standing heroically as if they've been coached to keep your feet like at least 18 inches and 2 feet apart.
And they're shooting down. They're shooting slightly down. They're just like, again, standing like they're on the edge of the stage about to declaim things. And like, as soon as that was pointed out to me, I cannot not notice it about how awkwardly these people are like they're standing against a hurricane or something.
Oh, and here's the shot. Hold on. I won't go full screen that way. It'll probably not be a problem for you, but
I don't think it's a problem.
Anyway, so if we hold on, let me grab the right.
I mean, what do we have to do to get Apple to let us do this, right?
Did you mute yourself, Alex?
He muted himself and isn't. There we go.
I'll leave my mic open so you can hear it. But this is if you look at it here.
Okay, you got to switch to it. I can't see it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my God!
Whoa!
We've lost him.
Holy cow!
Apple Intelligence.
Is this the rapture?
I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
Make that same joke.
Sorry, let me do this.
That's what you were saying. This is Daredevil. Yeah.
So wait, hold on. This was.
Okay, is that Daredevil 2? Because
this is Deadpool 2.
Deadpool, I mean Daredevil.
And
yeah.
See, but if you look at this here.
It does look a lot like it, except they were in a helicopter. So, there's one difference.
Well, they're in a helicopter, but look at the build. I mean, I just think if someone said, I think that Apple one,
they said, hey,
they said, let's do the Deadpool jump.
Let's do Deadpool.
It doesn't mean that it's a frame for frame,
right?
But they're but
okay, we get the message.
Anyway,
right.
So see that you can see this is all the.
Yeah, that's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
how else would you shoot it?
Well, that's true.
How you.
I mean, I welcome anybody who comes to that conclusion. I'm just like, I've seen so many of these shots, and they're almost all the same.
Right.
It just felt like if you watch that whole sequence, it is. I mean, it's just like I work on corporate stuff. That's what happens all the time. You go, hey, let's do this shot, except we'll do this thing here, and then they make it, and it's got a bunch of Apple things. But I think that if you watch that sequence, you'll see that they look really close to each other. And it was good. It was a funny. It was the best scene in Deadpool 2, in my opinion. So it was a good thing that if you're going to take something there, I think we thought about I think that what they did, or by the way, for the people when they jumped out or when Craig jumped out, I think those are actual. I think those are actual jumps, and I think that they just pasted his face onto it. When I looked at it a little closer, I think they actually did a CG replace.
Unless there is a real hair helmet.
I hope so.
In which case, that belongs in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's take a little break. Your picks of the week coming up as we continue MacBreak Weekly. Going to wrap this up in a moment, but first, a plea. I have to beg. This is where I beg. I should just get on my knees, shouldn't I, and just beg. We would love you to join the club. It's an invite to be in the least exclusive but most fun club in the world, Club Twit. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all our shows. It supports new shows. It supports us doing video and shows that are audio only, like iOS Today, Hands on Macintosh. Micah does those. Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott, the Untitled Linux Show with Jonathan Bennett and company. It's a good cast now, boy. They got a lot of people on that show. You get access to our Club Twit Discord, where day or night, there are smart people answering questions, talking, having a great time. Also special events like the book club coming up on the 27th. And coming on the third Wednesday of every month, Micah's Creative Corner.
Crafting Corner.
Crafting Corner.
Yay!
Well, if you want to build Legos, I think that's what John Ashley's going to do.
Or knit, or crochet, or paint, or whatever craft you want to bring.
That's going to be awesome.
You can hang out. We're all hanging out together just crafting. There's a thing called body doubling. And it's the idea that when you do something with other people, then you're more likely to get it done. So
I like it.
We'll just hang out and chat and make our crafts together. And I'd love to see you there.
What fun. Join the club. There's just many reasons to do it. Do crafts, not drugs.
Crafts, not drugs.
Do crafts, not drugs.
Rugs, not drugs.
Rugs, not drugs.
There you go.
Even better. Yeah, you should go do a rewrite on this show, whatever the hell it was. Just go to twit.tv/clubtwit and you could be in the club.
Into club.
They've even got Craig Federighi gifts in the club. So
wow.
I don't know what that's from. Poor guy. He really is running. That's a Tom Cruise shot. That poor guy. I hope he didn't have to do too many takes. I mean, I'm sure he's in good shape.
He'd be game for it, I'm sure.
Andy Anako, let's get a pick of the week, shall we?
Well, this is very much in tune with AI and also developer keynotes. Last year at Google I/O, Google showed off Notebook LM, which was a research tool that will ingest like PDFs and things that you give it, and then essentially it becomes an AI that only knows the things that you've given it. And so they finally made it public just last week. Go to notebooklm.google. It's still an experiment, but it's available to everybody. I tested it out by giving it, there's a research project I've been on for the past like 10 or 20 years, a history project off and on. And so I have like dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of PDFs and scans and text files and notes. And I just spent like an hour just dragging it from like a hard drive like onto Notebook LM, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting half of what it did. Like just immediately, like here is a if frequently asked questions file on all of this data.
Wow.
And like here is an index to everything that happened here, and I can ask a question like, when did Frederick MacMonnies do the second version of the sculpture? Like not the version for Paris, but the version that went to Yerkes, and would say, oh well, that happened XYZ date. Here is the document that I got that from. And again, it doesn't seem to hallucinate because again, it's not getting any information from any. Excuse me, it can always hallucinate, but I'm saying it's only getting information from exactly the documents and the files that you gave it. So as a result, it's very, very well contained. It helps you to navigate these huge, huge projects. They usually tend to, Google tends to present this as, if you're a kid, if your kid is studying physics, you can put all of their textbooks and all their lessons, all their coursework, and it can create quizzes for them, and they can help them like learn a new concept. But this is the sort of thing that becomes like, oh my God, I live in a world of wonders, because I have all this research has largely resisted my attempts to sit down and spend a week just categorizing all of it, producing a timeline of everything, producing a list of, here are all the people that are involved in this thing. Here are open questions I don't have the answers to. And just immediately just messing around like, oh, I suddenly, with no intention of solving this problem, I have solved this problem. And I quickly went from testing out this thing to spending 3 or 4 hours like investigating new insights that I would not have had access to if I did not have this tool. So really fun stuff to play with. Unfortunately, it is an experiment, which means that like I'm sure that as soon as you become 100% dependent on it, Google has a good chance of like canceling it and never showing it ever again. But while we have it, just like, we all going to die someday, just like every Google project has to die someday. So enjoy every day that we have Notebook LM while we have it.
It's free in your Google account, notebooklm.google.com. We on This Week in Google had one of its creators and advisors on This Week in Google way back in the day. Jeff Jarvis, like 4 months ago, Jeff Jarvis had come to Google and seen a demo of it. And they brought in a lot of academics and advisors. And so I actually, back then, I added a bunch of Security Now show notes into it and played with it a little bit. And yeah, it's very impressive. It is, and it's a tool you can play with. No, experimental. So I think that means, yeah, it probably won't last long. but it's good to try. Notebooklm.google.com. They showed it quickly. They gave away my secret. I have a site that is 84-24.org. Do you know what that is? 1984 to 2024. It is the story of the Macintosh, a tale of restoring an 80s timeless classic. And if nothing else, it's a beautifully designed webpage. He actually got an old Mac, tells the story of it getting it, of getting it working. We have, John Selena has an old, was it 128K Mac that you have? Yeah. And we were able to get it working with some additional hardware. Here is his first boot. Oh, that was very much like our first boot, wasn't it, John? 04040A. Yeah. He talks about what that means. The devil's interval. That's the boot sound, the sad Mac. Anyway, lovely little site. Beautifully done, too, with a lot of nice CSS. 84-24.org. Here's open heart surgery on desoldering chips and resoldering them. Putting in new hard drives.
Wow.
We ended up getting a floppy emulator, right, to boot up. That I think Jason Snell recommended, as I remember. Right. But This is cool. In the 50th, 40th anniversary of the 128K Mac, 84-24.
Very cool.
.org. Yeah, nice, beautifully done site, by the way.
I'm blown away by the community that keeps these things running. It's not always just restoration. Like, okay, I'm going to recap everything. I'm going to fix the flyback transformer. There's a whole subculture that is, wow, this would be so much easier if we gave it a 2024 era power supply instead of this ropey thing from the 1980s. Hey, wow, let's build one. And now you've got one. And boy, it would be nice if we didn't have to like get the SCSI drive working again. If we just could use flash RAM. Hey, wow, here's something we can install in place of the floppy drive or in place of the SCSI. And so you just you don't have to make it exactly the way it was before. You can make it just function the way it did before, only more reliably. I'm so impressed with the community.
Nice job, Michele Gheorghi, his cousin Luca, and his future wife Francesca Regini on a beautifully done site, 84-24.org. Micah Sargent, do you have a pick for us?
I just wanted to mention the Apple Developer app, which you can get on the Mac. The Apple Developer app is great because it is updated throughout the year, but particularly around WWDC, the sessions are posted there, and you get the transcripts, you get an overview of the different talks that take place, and then also it has access to the different resources. So if an event has, or if a talk has sample code, you can easily download it from there. A lot of this is available via the WWDC website, which is developer.apple.com. But I really like this kind of all-in-one app because it lets you have one window open that's just devoted to looking at the different talks and explanation of the new technology.
And if you don't want your family to bother you while you're looking at it, there's an Apple Vision version.
That's right. There is an Apple Vision version. An Apple Vision version.
I don't know what the iMessage version.
I think just stickers.
Oh, it's just stickers. Okay. But, always nice to have some fun stickers.
Yeah.
Whoever added in the last couple of years added the playback speed. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
nice?
We appreciate you. Whoever it was, we appreciate you.
We do.
For doing that. Because for a long time, the Apple stuff none of the developer sessions had playback control.
Yep.
Of speed. And it was just really painful.
You guys just don't like
1.8.
You don't like normal speed.
Well, the funny thing is that now that Apple's moved off the stage, number one is the videos are way better. They sound way better. They're way cleaner. They're sometimes shorter, but they have this very slow pace that all the videos are. So you really feel like you have to watch them a little faster than they were recorded. You'll get used to it at 1.5 pretty quickly. And then you go back to 1.0 and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's how slow is this? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is Decibel X. I'm doing more and more concerts, and I'm paying more attention to my ears. So Decibel X is it's an app, and there is a subscription. I can't remember what the subscription is. I've had this thing for so long. But this is, it shows you the decibels. Of course, your watch has that, but this has a lot more information. So this is showing, in a lot of ways, this is showing this is where it is across the spectrum. So I can see where that volume is.
I need this.
I can swing across and I can see this. This is a much more basic version, or much more a different graph here. Here's a spectrogram. So I can actually see those there. And then here are, highs and lows here. And so it gives you a lot of, there's a lot of different ways to look at the audio where you're at. And I use this a lot.
Is it using the iPhone mic, or do you have to give it an input? It is using
the iPhone. Nope, it's using the iPhone mic. I will tell you that I've tested it against calibrated systems that $1,200 meters that are designed to tell me how loud it is, because there's things that I work on that I have to know exactly how loud it is in a certain seat or a certain location. And it's plus or minus a decibel. Like, it is really remarkably accurate. Wow. Like I was, because I'm sitting there looking at the two of them together, and they're close enough for me to make decisions, on it. If I'm going to be accountable for it, I'll still use the expensive meter. But being able to be in a concert, like I was at I took my daughter to a concert, and I got her some earpieces, and other people weren't wearing them. And I was like, I wonder if it's do I really need to wear these? And I opened up the app, and it was at like 120 decibels where we were standing. I was like, yeah, probably keep them in. Yeah. So, I think that, especially again, as I'm sensitive of where my kids are starting to go to concerts, being able to illustrate, like, anything over this decibel, about 85 decibels, you're doing permanent damage. So it's worth checking out. Of course, you do have things on your watch that will tell you things like this. It's just that I get a lot more data with this one. So Decibel X, I think it's great app. Well designed and works well.
I just downloaded it, installed it. 1 week free trial, $30 a year, which is not bad at all, given that a really good, Doro meter would cost thousands. This is great. I'm so thrilled. Thank you. Decibel X.
I was surprised I hadn't talked about it before. I've had it for years. I mean, I've had it almost since they released it. And I was surprised that I had to search MBW picks to, like, have I said this before? And it was like, no, can't find it. So,
well, I'm just happy to say that the level is safe right now. It's
right. Yeah, exactly. It does give you little things like dust. It'll give you, like, this is what you're listening to is the equivalent of a normal conversation. If you look at this is if I cut to it, you'll see that this is, if I'm,
what
nice.
it compares
so he tells
to
you like, this is a motorcycle, this is a motorcycle,
That's really
motorcycle.
nice.
I'm going to, and inside a car, but you can see power motors and, all the other things. Yeah.
This
So
is
it's,
awesome.
I'm
it's
as
got
loud as
ways
a
to be-
pneumatic riveter.
Yeah, exactly. And there's other ones out there. I just think this one has the most features, and it's the most interesting. And I use it probably weekly for years. So for different things I'm measuring.
It also has a hearing test built in.
Ooh.
I'll try that.
It's got so many features.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
I, as you know, I have severe tinnitus, a ringing in the ears. And,
Yes.
This would
I
be.
share this with you.
I wish I'd had this when I was a young person. And young people, pay attention. Actually, the watch gives you at least a little bit of a warning if
I
it
love
goes over
that.
90 dB. I just started last week the linear tinnitus treatment. I feel silly.
That's you.
That's
Is it
me.
working?
Not yet. My audiologist said it takes 2 weeks before you notice anything. And she said, you might notice it gets louder or weirder. Don't worry, that's normal. I say, hey, if it changes the level or sound of my tinnitus at all,
Even that would be.
I will
yeah.
be very
anything.
impressed.
Movement is.
There is no cure for
Change the station.
tinnitus, but this apparently trains your brain to ignore it. It's 12 weeks, twice a day for half an hour. Now, when they first said that, I thought, oh, this is going to be terrible. But actually, it's quite relaxing. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It plays, there's a piano going da 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 da, like scales, da 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 da. And then there's a flute and a bass in the background. There's pink noise. There's water rushing. There's drips. The frequencies go up and down. There's a
getting
synthesizer.
more-
They've tricked Leo into paying a bunch of money to listen to a jam band.
It's
and he
like a
doesn't
jam band,
realize
except
it.
it's never changed. Well, maybe it does change. They said, now I have to ask the audiologist, but they said it's tuned to my,
it's actually tuned to you.
my frequency.
That's cool.
And I forgot to ask her if it was 9,000 kilohertz, which is what Alex says he thinks most of tinnitus is. But
A bunch of us that have tinnitus have all talked about where it is, and we started listening to it, and I think all of us seem to be
I
somewhere
can't
in the
even
9K
hear
range.
9K, which means
I still test up to like 13 or 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
anyway, I'll give you a feedback. Over probably in 12 weeks because I think I should give it the full thing. I don't know if it works or not. It's $4,000,
But now it's tax
you know what?
deductible because you talked about it.
It's worth it because if I would pay twice that to get rid of this tinnitus.
if it works for you, I'll buy it. Like I'll find the money because it is something I've had for most of my life. I mean, and I'm used to it. Like I read something where someone committed suicide because they got it in COVID or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
that's
And I was like,
horrible.
okay, well,
It can make you crazy.
I hear it a lot.
So what you do is you have the
It
headphones.
happened really suddenly. It would be really problematic.
Yeah.
But it happened for me
Yeah, for
slowly,
me, it's
so
been
you just get
building.
used to it.
It just got really loud in the last couple of years, and it's starting to annoy me. And I'm not going to kill myself, but I'm pissed.
When it takes out one ear is the
You might
part that
get
I
somebody
like
else.
suddenly. Do you ever have that,
Pissed.
Leo, where it just suddenly one ear just goes completely? You just suddenly hear this really loud.
Yeah. It's and now it's both ears. It started with this ear. I mean, I always had a ringing. It got really loud in the right ear, and now it's in the left ear, and it's loud. And the thing is, it's perceptible all the time. And that's when I said I'm going to do something. I didn't mention you listen to the mixes of tones and music. You also have a little thing you put on your tongue that's zapping your tongue at the same time. It feels like champagne bubbles. It's not painful. It just tickles your tongue. And I think the
I'm
theory is that using bimodal stimulus, trigeminal nerve, and your hearing, there's tricking your brain into eventually ignoring your tinnitus. We'll see. I don't know. It's
So interesting.
It's FDA approved, so it's not harmful, I guess, is all I can say.
Right.
In
Won't kill
fact,
you.
I feel like I'm meditating twice a day for half an hour.
That's
it's very
kinda nice,
relaxing.
yeah.
It's great. Afterwards, I feel great. I want to do it all the time. I thought, I'm going to hate this.
Yeah, I would think I would too.
Yeah.
Twice a day for that
Do
long.
you have to sit in a quiet place, or can you sit outside?
They
or
say
can
you could I sit outside often. They say you could do a crossword puzzle if you want, or knit if you want. But I think my opinion is probably best and they don't want you to lie down because you might go to sleep. They want you to stay awake.
You have to be alert enough.
But I like keeping my eyes closed. It's like meditation. I'll sit upright with my eyes closed, just like I'm meditating. And I find it very relaxing. Every once in a while, I'll zone out. I thought half an hour, I'm going to be like,
Yeah, itching to get on to the next thing.
and in fact, when it starts to slow down, the end comes. I want more. So anyway, there it is. I will let you know if it works. If it does, I will be singing its praises. My suspicion is going to kind of work.
Yeah, they do say soothe a lot.
Yeah.
Any
Soothe
progress.
tinnitus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any progress would be good.
This is what the little tongue thing looks like. This is from an NPR piece. Right. It's kind of interesting.
I think that's really cool.
I'll let you try it. I'll wipe it off with. They give you alcohol swabs.
That would be fun just to see.
Try it. It's not going to be tuned to your particular hearing laws, but that's it for MacBreak Weekly. Thank you, Andy and Nako. GBH in your future.
Yes, week from Thursday. Go to WGBHnews.org at about 1 p.m. Eastern Time to listen to it live or later.
Nice. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks also to Micah Sargent filling in for Jason. Jason Snell will be back next week, I think.
I think so.
6 Colors. You can watch his review of his hostage experience there. Micah is, of course, going to be back Thursday for Tech News Weekly, Sunday for Ask the Tech Guys, and every other week on Tuesdays with Rosemary Orchard for
iOS Today. That's when we record it, but an episode publishes every single Thursday, along with an episode of Hands on Mac every single Thursday.
Thank you very much. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. What did you do these days? Obviously, I know what you did this morning. You went over the video and critiqued it.
Yeah. I mean, we had a great session. As I said, we had eCam last Thursday. On Friday, we had the associate director of all the broadcasts for Harvard talking about all of their sports broadcasting. And, it was fascinating to talk about it because they have almost all students doing it, not Harvard students, interestingly enough, but lots of students that are there that they're training, and they're constantly training hundreds of students to shoot all these video. And they have 40 different teams that they have to cover, and they're covering them all, all over campus. And he really talked about how they approach that. And, a lot of this is going to ESPN too. And so it was just a really fascinating conversation. Of course, this week has been mostly. Yesterday we talked about what we thought would happen. Today we talked about what happened. So there was a lot of, like we talked about the graphics and what we thought. And it's been, we've had some great conversations so far. Yeah.
Nice.
And we covered it. We did our second ear experience yesterday. So it's not very useful. I think we might take it down off of YouTube because I don't know how to watch it now because we didn't incorporate any of the show into it. You just hear us talking. You're like we're just. It's designed for you to watch the keynote and then listen to us.
I've been thinking about doing that to avoid takedowns. We just go, okay, the video's going to begin in 3, 2, 1. You start it and we talk, but no video.
The funny thing is that what the complicated part was that we wanted to be able to hear it and talk to each other, but not have it go out to the broadcast. Right. And so using Zoom ISO and Zoom tiles, like all of our things are just Zoom tiles. The whole show is just Zoom tiles into Mimo Live. Like there wasn't no real production, in it other than that. But we brought in all the ISO, so we were able to pull just us out, drop 8 of us into tiles and put it out there. So it was a fun experiment, and we had a lot of viewers. It was nice. Fun. It was a fun thing to do.
And then of course the show you do with Michael Krasny, graymatter.show.
We had Stephen Brill.
Oh, wow.
Last week. Yeah. So it was a really good conversation. You talk about someone who's just really talking about trust and around a lot of the things we're talking about internationally. And what he does is he's looking at how do you trust news organizations or how do you trust websites. And so he's been spending a lot of time on trust issues around what you see on the web.
Good.
And
is he supporting Section 230? Does he in favor?
I don't think I think he just said that was a big bill, and this was like a couple lines, and it has become this, I think as he discussed it, I don't think he's in favor of it.
Okay.
I think he thinks it should be taken away. I think that there's a lot of, what he talked about is accountability, some accountability. And I think that the hard part is that with 230, every time that discussion comes up in gray matter, is that it's not perfect, but if you unwrap it, you don't know how it comes back. It's an imperfect, thing that was written almost 30 years ago.
A lot of these
And it was
guys
almost a side
in
note.
three-piece suits, Steve is part of the media establishment, even though NewsGuard is not. Think of it as a law that gets big tech off the hook. And I'm always at great pains to say, fine, whatever. But it also keeps little old me able to have a chat room and a forum and a Mastodon instance, because if I were on the hook for everything you said in our chat room, I would shut it off immediately.
Yeah,
and it protects me. So yeah,
Again,
maybe Google and Facebook and Apple and Microsoft don't deserve that protection. But let me tell you, 99% of the internet needs that protection to survive.
Absolutely. And I'm an ardent supporter of not touching 230, because it's not that I know that it's not perfect, but if you open up that gate, there are so many people that want in and get their little grubby hands into it that it'll never come back in a way that will work.
Yeah, modifying such a 230 is step one of a 5-step process on some whiteboard that you don't have access to. So
exactly.
That's why you don't let them get to step one.
Yep.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Micah, great to see you. I give you my glowing petunias.
Yes.
And I wish you luck.
I will do my best to recover them.
I almost killed them. In fact, as far as I could tell, I might have killed them.
One of them smells rotted to all
They don't
hell.
smell good. Is that normal?
It's just one of them that smells terrible.
Oh, it's just one.
Yeah,
well,
that
throw
one's
that
probably
one out.
going away.
Okay.
Yeah, it's currently last time I walked in my office, I had to walk out because it smelled so bad.
Oh, I thought that's just how petunias smelled.
I think there's something wrong with one of them. It almost smells like you poured rotten milk into it.
I'm pretty sure I didn't.
See, you're tampering in God's domain. Damn it. Never ends up.
What they did, which is really cool, is they gene spliced, I think, a firefly with a petunia
Something like
to get a glow-in-the-dark plant. And they said
firefly with BO.
maybe the firefly had not used its right guard.
Should have chosen.
It would have been a different story entirely. Thank you, everybody. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can watch the live version of the show, the unexpurgated live version on YouTube, youtube.com/twits/live. We turn on the cameras right at the beginning of the show and turn them off at the end. So if you subscribe and smash the bell, then you'll get a notification when we go live. After the fact, easy to download audio or video or both from twit.tv, our website, twit.tv/mbw for this show. You can also watch a YouTube channel dedicated to the video, just MacBreak Weekly all the time. Or, best thing, get yourself a podcast client and subscribe. That way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available, and you can listen or watch at your leisure. Thanks for being here, my friends. Thanks especially to our Club Twit members. We love having you in the club. I really appreciate what you've done for us. Thank you. You've helped a lot. And I have to say, as I have said from day one, it was Alex Lindsay who told me I have to say this at every show. Get back to work, because break time is over. Bye-bye.